After the divorce, I was chased by a rich and beautiful woman. It hurts. Brother-in-law, it really hurts. Just as Lin Jiang pushed open the door, he saw Chen Yaoyao kneeling at the bathroom entrance, her damp hair clinging to her cheeks, loosely wrapped in a bathrobe. Her long, glistening legs stretched out under her, and her curvy figure was fully exposed to the light, sensual and tempting, seemingly unaware of the seductive image she was presenting. Ooh. Brother-in-law, it hurts. Tears welled up in Chen Yaoyao's eyes, her beautiful face streaked with pain. She clutched her slender waist and looked up at Lin Jiang with pleading, misty eyes. Please help me, it really hurts. Lin Jiang froze for a moment. Chen Yaoyao was his sister-in-law, currently a dance student at Jiangling University. With her graceful curves and delicate figure, she looked all the more enchanting as she half knelt there, revealing her flawless pale skin so alluring that Lin Jiang didn't dare look directly at her. He quickly walked over, trying to stay calm. Yaoyao, what happened? My back. I twisted my waist. She winced in pain and reached for Lin Jiang's arm, trying to stand. But just then, she suddenly lost balance and fell straight into his arms. In that instant rip, her thin silk bathrobe tore with a sharp sound. Smooth, bare shoulders were exposed to the air, along with two thin red lace straps. Lin Jiang's pupils dilated sharply. Brother-in-law, do you like what you see? Resting softly in Lin Jiang's arms, Chen Yaoyao's slender hand wrapped around his neck. Her ruby lips curled into a teasing smile. Do you want to be with me? Droplets from her wet hair landed on Lin Jiang's face, making his breath quicken. He turned his head away abruptly and said sternly, Yaoyao, stop this. If your sister sees us like this, it won't be good. Not good, huh? Chen Yaoyao's smile suddenly turned cold. Her playful expression faded and was replaced with disgust and malice. Then, smack. She slapped Lin Jiang hard across the face. The crisp sound echoed through the room. Lin Jiang stood there in shock, wide-eyed. Yaoyao, you. Bang. Just then, the door was kicked open violently. Chen Shui strode in with a smug, sinister grin, her eyes filled with triumph. She lifted the camera in her hand and sneered, not bad, Yaoyao. That was quite the performance. Performance? Lin Jiang turned to Chen Shui, utterly stunned. Shuier, what are you talking about? What do you think? Chen Shui shot him a contemptuous glare, then pulled out a divorce agreement and slapped it against his face. I'm done with you. Sign this divorce paper right now and get out of the Chen family. If you refuse or if you try telling Grandpa about this, I'll report you to the police and say you assaulted my sister. Let's see how long you last in prison. Divorce. Lin Jiang stared at the document on the floor. His heart felt like it had been pierced by 1,000 arrows, an indescribable sense of betrayal and pain. He had grown up in an orphanage. Later, after getting into medical school, he saved Chen Shui's grandfather during an internship. Out of gratitude, the old man brought him into the Chen family as a live-in son-in-law. Aside from the old man who treated him like family, everyone else looked down on him. Things got even worse when the old man announced he'd leave the family business to Lin Jiang, outraging everyone in the Chen family. In order to prove himself, Lin Jiang worked tirelessly. He even delivered food and took on side jobs just to provide for Chen Shui and gain her affection. But what did he get in return? Divorce. Didn't you hear? Chen Yaoyao slapped him again, yelling, My sister told you to sign. So do it. Lin Jiang's eyes turned red. He clenched his fists and asked with pain in his voice, Why? What did I do wrong? Why? Before Chen Shui could answer, a young man in a sharp suit walked in and wrapped an arm around her waist. Because she is pregnant with my child. Is that reason enough? You. Didn't I tell you to wait downstairs? Chen Shui said, showing a side of herself Lin Jiang had never seen, shy and flirtatious. The man pinched her cheek and chuckled. I couldn't wait. I just want you to hurry up and get divorced. You too. Lin Jiang's expression twisted in disbelief. What, you shocked? Chen Shui scoffed and leaned close to him, her voice dripping with disdain. I forgot to tell you I've been with Mr. Shu for a long time. On the night of our wedding, you were passed out drunk, and he and I, well, we had a long night together. Her words hit Lin Jiang like a knife to the heart. For 3 years, he thought she was simply unwilling to be intimate, so he respected her. But now she was telling him she cheated on their wedding night in their marital bed. I said it clearly, I cheated on you. Seeing his devastated look, Chen Shui smirked even more. She lazily added, oh, and I didn't just get pregnant once with his baby. I think it happened 4 times. You whore. Veins popped on Lin Jiang's forehead. The suppressed rage exploded. He swung his hand, roaring, I'll kill you both, you filthy. Still trying to fight. Before the slap could land, Xu Xian kicked Lin Jiang in the chest. Bang! He was sent flying backward, crashing into the window. His chest burned with pain as blood surged through his organs. He tried to get up, but Xu Xian stormed over, grabbed him by the collar, and growled, you trash. Today, I'll take your woman and your life. With that, he slammed Lin Jiang's head into the window. Crash! Glass shattered. At that very moment, a fiery red Maserati sped past outside. Inside, Chen Yaoyao was still on the phone when... Bang! Lin Jiang's body crashed into the hood like a broken kite, sent flying nearly 10 meters. Chen Yaoyao's face turned pale. Her lips trembled as she cried out, Uncle Zhang, I hit someone. Chapter 2, Where is that man? Useless waste. In a haze of blurred consciousness, Lin Jiang heard a thunderous voice roaring in his ears like divine thunder cracking the heavens. The sheer force of it made his head throb in pain. Who? He looked around in a panic. Everything was shrouded in thick white mist, but within it, a towering figure stood between heaven and earth. Majestic and immovable like a mountain, the presence exuded an overwhelming sense of pressure. As the first reincarnated heir of Shannon, you live like a coward. You bring shame to our legacy. The booming voice echoed like a divine decree. Instinctively, Lin Jiang tried to cover his ears from the ringing, but before he could, the mist rolled away, revealing the majestic figure more clearly. A divine presence emanated from the man, peerless and commanding, like a sovereign of heaven and earth. Lin Jiang's heart trembled. Eyes wide, he stammered, who are you? I am your master Shannon. The man's gaze was like a drawn sword, sharp and penetrating. He glared at Lin Jiang for a long, silent moment before sighing. The Shannon Hall of Great Shear is on the verge of collapse. If you don't grow stronger soon, how will you face your enemies? How will you restore our legacy? Master? Lin Jiang looked stunned. The scene before him felt surreal like a dream. Fear gripped his chest. Before he could ask more, divine light suddenly burst forth. The majestic figure appeared right before him and reached out to press a finger against Lin Jiang's forehead. Oh! A wave of blinding pain surged through Lin Jiang's skull, sharp as a blade, forcing a scream from his lips. Beads of cold sweat slid down his face. He abruptly opened his eyes only to see a stunningly beautiful face before him. Her almond-shaped eyes reflected his silhouette, her face bare of makeup yet strikingly gorgeous. Compared to her, Chen Shui was nothing but dirt. You're finally awake. Chen Yaoyao smiled with visible relief, but her expression also held a touch of guilt. I'm really sorry about last night. If I hadn't been speeding, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Thankfully, the doctor said your injuries looked serious, but strangely you're perfectly fine. You hit me with your car? Lin Jiang looked around in confusion and realized he was in a hospital room. He instinctively rubbed his head, recalling the moment Chen Shui and Xu Xian pushed him out the window. A flash of cold rage passed through his eyes. No. This wasn't a simple car accident, it was the work of those two snakes. But when Lin Jiang noticed that his body bore no wounds at all, he was shocked. Suddenly, strands of golden light flashed across his mind. These strands contained vast knowledge, ancient medical secrets, yin-yang and feng shui, even cultivation techniques. Wait, that wasn't a dream. His eyes widened in disbelief. A deep joy welled up inside him. Chen Yaoyao noticed the complex changes in Lin Jiang's expression and gave him a puzzled look. Before she could ask, a nurse rushed in. Miss Chen. Miracle Dr. Zhao has arrived. Good. Thank you. Chen Yaoyao gave a polite nod, then turned to Lin Jiang and said apologetically, I have something urgent to deal with. If you don't mind waiting, I'll be back soon to talk about compensation. And no, really, it's fine. Lin Jiang waved his hands, jumping off the bed. This incident wasn't her fault, in fact, she saved him. How could he ask for compensation? But Chen Yaoyao was in a rush and didn't seem to hear his reply. She quickly stepped into the room next door. Lin Jiang, curious, glanced that way. Unlike an ordinary room, this one was fully equipped with advanced medical gear. On the bed lay an elderly man with snow-white hair and a frail, pallid face. His hollow cheeks made him look like a dying candle flickering in the wind. "Dr. Zhao, how is my grandfather's condition?" Qin Chiu asked carefully, her voice tinged with hope. "Miss Qin, rest assured." Zhao Dongyang smiled confidently. "I possess the secret art of the 16 yin-yang needles. Though the old man is weak, this method can stimulate his vital functions and bring him back." Joy lit up Qin Chiu's face. "Thank you, Dr. Zhao. Please, treat him quickly." "It will be done." Zhao flicked his fingers and retrieved several silver needles from his pouch, preparing to administer the treatment. But Lin Jiang's face darkened. He suddenly stepped forward. "Stop. While the 16 yin-yang needles can stimulate the body, it comes at the cost of life force. It will cause internal backlash. Will vomit blood." Zhao Dongyang's eyes narrowed. "Who are you to speak out here? You again?" Qin Chiu frowned slightly, then explained, "Dr. Zhao, he's just a friend. Please don't take him seriously. Go ahead with the treatment." "No. If you proceed, the old man will bleed from all 7 orifices and die." Lin Jiang pointed at the old man, whose face was growing darker by the second. "He is already at his limit." "Nonsense." Zhao Dongyang snapped, his face contorted with anger. Qin Chiu's cheeks flushed with frustration. "Enough. Our business is done. Please leave now or don't blame me for calling security." At her command, a dozen fierce-looking bodyguards poured into the room, all staring Lin Jiang down. "Sir, please leave immediately. Do not interfere with Dr. Zhao's treatment." "Fine." Lin Jiang knew too much talk would only make things worse. He turned and walked out under the guards' watchful eyes. Zhao Dongyang sneered at his back. "Since when do kids dare lecture me?" With a flick of his wrist, he inserted the needles one by one into the old man's acupoints. Only the final needle remained. Zhao looked up and smiled. "Miss Qin, don't worry. With this last needle your grandfather will splurt." Before he could finish, the old man suddenly coughed up mouthfuls of black blood, thick and horrifying. The entire room fell into cold silence. Qin Chiu's face turned white. Panic surged in her voice. "Dr. Zhao. What is happening? My grandfather. I don't know." Zhao Dongyang's face was pale now too. "Save him. Save my grandfather," she screamed. "Oh, of course." Zhao stabbed another needle down in a panic. But now blood streamed from the old man's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Qin Chiu's scalp went numb with fear. She suddenly remembered the man outside. She rushed to the door and threw it open. But he was gone. Only the security guards stood there, confused. Furious and desperate, she screamed. "Where is that man?" Chapter 3, A Strange Needle Saves Life. "Miss, he has left." Seeing Qin Chiu's anxious and hasty expression, the bodyguards' faces suddenly changed drastically, and they subconsciously asked, "But he shouldn't have gone too far. Bring him back to me immediately." Qin Chiu's cold and beautiful face was now full of urgency. Without waiting for the bodyguards to finish their words, she immediately gave the order. The old man's current condition does not allow for any delay. Since Lin Jiang can predict the old man's potential danger, there must be a way to save him. Qin Chiu looked at the bodyguards who were leaving in a hurry, bit her red lips anxiously, and whispered, "I hope everything is still in time." At this moment, Lin Jiang looked at the hustle and bustle of traffic passing by, and a deep sense of confusion emerged in his eyes. Where should he go now that he is homeless? "Stop!" Suddenly, several deep and cold voices came from behind, and the bodyguards came forward aggressively and stopped Lin Jiang directly. "Excuse me, my lady asks you to go back." Hearing the cold and ruthless voices of these bodyguards, Lin Jiang frowned suddenly. However, when he thought that Qin Chiu had saved his life, Lin Jiang followed the bodyguards back to the hospital. But they didn't expect these bodyguards to be so ruthless. They pushed and shoved Lin Jiang back to the ward and took credit for it, saying, "Miss, we caught this guy for you. How dare you? Who told you to treat him like this?" A flash of anger flashed across Qin Chiu's beautiful face. She slapped him hard on the face with her backhand and shouted angrily, didn't I ask you to come back? Bang! The bodyguard's face turned red from the fiery slap. He opened his mouth to explain, but Qiningqiu frowned and said, "Get out." The bodyguard's face froze and he quickly rolled out in shame. Qiningqiu looked at Lin Jiang with hope at this moment, and said with a complicated expression, "It was my fault just now. If you can save my grandfather now, I, Qiningqiu, will owe you a favor." "Ms. Qin, no." Zhao Dongyang was in a panic. This kid's origins are unknown. If something happens to Master Qin again, it will really cause a disaster. I suggest calling my master back and letting him take action himself. Just shut up. Qiningqiu looked frosty and glared at Zhao Dongyang coldly. Mr. Feng is on a business trip now. Even if he takes a plane, it will take 3 hours. How long can my grandfather wait? Anger surged in her beautiful eyes, and Qiningqiu quickly looked at Lin Jiang. "Sir, you." Lin Jiang did not answer. It is the duty of the disciples of Shenong Temple to save the dying and the wounded and to help the world. Moreover, Qiningqiu saved his life, so he has to repay the favor. In an instant, Lin Jiang stepped forward, snatched a silver needle from Zhao Dongyang's hand, and directly inserted it into the old man's yintang acupoint, then stretched out his hand and gently flicked it. "How dare you? That's the yintang acupoint." Zhao Dongyang was so angry when he saw Lin Jiang was so cruel with the needle. Qiningqiu was also filled with grief and anger. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a look that wished she could tear Lin Jiang into pieces. "What are you going to do? Everyone knows the importance of yintang acupoint. But the person in front of me is actually..." Ahem. Just when Qiningqiu was furious and wanted to call the bodyguard outside the door, the old man on the hospital bed suddenly opened his eyes and opened his mouth to cough up a mouthful of thick black blood. Seeing this scene, there was complete silence all around. Qiningqiu stared at the old man lying on the bed with a dull look. A few tears flashed in her beautiful eyes. She quickly stepped forward and held his hands tightly. "Grandpa, how do you feel?" "No problem, no problem." Old Master Qin waved his hands weakly, and looked at Zhao Dongyang with gratitude, his eyes full of admiration. "You are worthy of being Feng Xinshou's disciple. You were able to pull me out of the gates of hell. This is a great favor. My Qin family." "Grandpa, it wasn't Dr. Zhao who saved you." Qiningqiu glared at Zhao Dongyang, who looked extremely embarrassed, and then quickly turned to look at Lin Jiang. Just as she was about to introduce him, she found out that she didn't know his name yet, so she could only say, "It's this gentleman in front of me." "Miss Qin, you're too polite." Lin Jiang said calmly with a smile, "I am just a nobody, how can I be called Mr.? If you don't mind, just call me Lin Jiang." "Lin Jiang." Qin Shifeng glanced at Lin Jiang in front of him in surprise. Seeing that he was unrestrained and calm, he nodded slightly and said, "Not bad, you have such skills at such a young age, and you are not arrogant or impatient. You are a good young man. As the saying goes, if an old person doesn't die, he is a demon." Qin Shifeng, whose body was half buried in the earth, had seen countless young juniors. It was rare for him to praise Lin Jiang, which made Qiningqiu beside him blink her beautiful eyes slightly, and she was also full of curiosity about Lin Jiang. Qiningqiu smiled and said, "Hello, Lin Jiang, let me introduce myself to you formally. My name is Qiningqiu." Looking at the slender white jade fingers in front of him, Lin Jiang was subconsciously stunned for a moment, then his 10 fingers touched slightly, and then he smiled and said, "Hello, Miss Qin." At this time, Qin Shifeng glanced indifferently at Zhao Dongyang, who was leaving awkwardly, then looked at Lin Jiang beside him, and said with a smile, "Xiao Lin, you saved my life, which means you are the old man's savior. What do you want? What do you want?" Lin Jiang's expression darkened. Now he has nothing and doesn't know what to ask for. Lin Jiang couldn't help but smile bitterly and shook his head. "Miss Qin saved my life, how could I ask for any reward? Let's do this." Seeing that Lin Jiang was trying to refuse, Qin Shifeng waved his hand and said, "My Qin family happens to have a sea view villa, which is usually vacant. Why not just give it to you? It can be regarded as a thank you from the Qin family. Mr. Qin, this." Lin Jiang's face changed, and he subconsciously opened his mouth to refuse, but Qiningqiu blinked and said, "My Qin family is engaged in real estate business. A mere villa is not worth mentioning at all." After chatting for a while, Qin Shifeng's face showed a strong sense of fatigue. Qiningqiu took the opportunity to say, "Lin Jiang, why don't I take you to the villa now? This. Lin Jiang wanted to refuse several times, but looking at Qi Ningqiu's clear and transparent eyes, he nodded slightly and agreed. After a while, the two walked out of the steps of the city hospital. Qi Ningqiu suddenly raised her eyes and asked, Lin Jiang, how is my grandfather's health? Noticing the deep worry in Qi Ningqiu's eyes, Lin Jiang shook his head and said, Mr. Qin is still a little weak. I will prescribe him some medicine and do some acupuncture and he will be fine. Real. Qi Ningqiu's eyebrows were curved, revealing two alluring dimples. Lin Jiang nodded and was about to speak when he heard a sharp brake sound and saw Chen Shui and Chen Yaoyao walking out of the BMW hand in hand. Then the three of them looked at each other, and Chen Shui's eyes widened, and she said in shock, Lin Jiang, you're not dead. Chapter 4, Beat Up the Sisters. Thanks to you. Lin Jiang's face turned pale as he said word by word, you two dogs are still alive, how can I die? This loser is really tough. Chen Yaoyao's eyes were sinister and vicious. After falling heavily from a building more than 10 stories high, Lin Jiang actually managed to survive. Is this guy so lucky? Chen Shui looked at Lin Jiang, who was standing steadily in front of her, her pretty face full of surprise, but when she looked at Qi Ningqiu, she realized how beautiful this woman was. She is graceful and elegant, like a fairy walking out of a painting. Compared with him, she was so different that she pales in comparison. Chen Shui gritted her teeth and said disdainfully, I was wondering how a useless person like you could be so lucky. It turns out that you were saved by this slutty bitch in front of you. As she spoke, Chen Shui looked at Qi Ningqiu and said sarcastically, Sister, can you open your eyes? How dare you stay with such a loser who is not even worthy of carrying someone's shoes? Lin Jiang's face was terribly gloomy. Chen Shui, I advise you to be more polite when you speak. But Qi Ningqiu didn't seem angry. She looked at Lin Jiang and Chen Shui for a few times and sneered, some women are blind and yet they are still complacent here. They don't know how to be ashamed. Am I blind? Chen Shui looked at Qi Ningqiu's beautiful face, and a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. My new boyfriend is the general manager of Dongyun Real Estate. Now that he is about to sign a billion-dollar contract with the Qin family, his status will surely rise rapidly. But what about Lin Jiang, a poor guy, who doesn't have a penny? Who do you think is blind? Dongyun Real Estate. Qi Ningqiu blinked and then chuckled, it seems that only women with no ability rely on men to get to the top, right? What did you say, you slut? When Chen Shui heard this, she was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She immediately flew into a rage and yelled, Don't think you can talk nonsense here just because you have a pretty face. I'll beat you to pieces. As she spoke, Chen Shui slapped him hard with her backhand. Bang! A sharp slap hit Chen Shui's face. She suddenly widened her eyes and looked at Lin Jiang, who was blocking Qi Ningqiu in disbelief. She shouted angrily, Lin Jiang. I gave you a shameless face, but you dare to hit me. Why can't I beat you up for a bitch like you? Lin Jiang looked down at Chen Shui with a cold and gloomy gaze, making her whole body tremble uncontrollably. Sister. Seeing Chen Shui's face visibly swollen, Chen Yaoyao rushed towards Lin Jiang with her teeth bared. Lin Jiang, you coward, you dare to hit my sister, I will fight you. With a bang. Lin Jiang didn't even look at Chen Yaoyao. He kicked the woman and knocked her over 3 or 4 meters on the spot. The black stockings wrapped around her legs were torn, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. R. Lin Jiang, you idiot, how dare you? Seeing her sister being kicked down by Lin Jiang, Chen Shui rushed towards Lin Jiang again like crazy, but she never expected that Lin Jiang would react so quickly. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Chen Shui's neck. With a bang! Lin Jiang slammed her weak body against the white BMW behind her. Lin Jiang's eyes were as cold as a sword. Chen Shui, for the sake of our previous friendship, I won't argue with you. If you don't know how to live or die, don't blame me for being rude to you. With a plop! Without any mercy, Lin Jiang threw Chen Shui to the ground like garbage. The excruciating pain made her stunned. Lin Jiang? Is this still the timid Lin Jiang? Looking at the gradually leaving figures of Lin Jiang and Qi Ningqiu, Chen Shui's eyes were full of resentment, and at this time Chen Yaoyao was even more tearful, crying and shouting, Sister! How dare Lin Jiang, this beast, hit us? Sister, tell my brother-in-law quickly, we can't let him go so easily, sister. Raising her hand to touch the red, swollen and stinging side of her face, Chen Shui gritted her teeth and called Xu Xian on the spot, Mr. Xu. Yao Yao and I were beaten up. Xu Xian on the other side of the phone narrowed his eyes and cursed loudly on the spot. Fuck. Who the hell is so bold as to hit you? It's Lin Jiang. Lin Jiang. Xu Xian's eyes suddenly widened, a look of shock and cruelty flashed across his face, and he said in a deep voice, "This beast is not dead." Chen Shui cried and cried, "Not only is he not dead, he also found a slut to bully us together." With a click, Xu Xian smashed the teacup in front of him into pieces on the spot and said viciously, "Okay. I got it. I'll call Yang Jinhu and ask him to find someone to kill Lin Jiang." At this time, on the street leading to Wanghai Villa district, Qining Xue looked at Lin Jiang beside her and asked, "Are you going to let them go so easily?" "No." Lin Jiang shook his head, his eyes full of determination, and said in a deep voice, "I am not a person who can easily let go of hatred. On the contrary, one day, I will make them pay a more painful price." Thinking of the humiliation of last night, thinking of the words said by Chen Shui and Xu Xian, that couple, they were like knives, stabbing into Lin Jiang's heart. At the same time, it also shattered Lin Jiang's dignity. In fact, I think the day when you can vent your anger is not far away. There was a hint of anticipation in Qining Chu's eyes, and she turned her head slightly to look at Lin Jiang. At that time, the sunlight through the car window hit Lin Jiang's face, which was sharp and firm, causing Qining Chu's eyes to stagnate slightly. Suddenly, she asked, 3 days later, our Qin family will have a night banquet at Qingyun Tower. I would like to invite you to attend. Is that okay? Qingyun Tower. Lin Jiang frowned slightly. As a person who grew up in Tianhai City, Lin Jiang knew that ordinary people could not enter a luxurious hotel like Qingyun Tower. However, Qining Chu could easily arrange a night banquet there, which was enough to show the background of the Qin family. Okay, it's settled. Without giving Lin Jiang a chance to think it over, Qining Chu smiled and made the decision directly. However, what Lin Jiang did not notice was that a sly and solemn look flashed across Qining Chu's long eyes. She immediately typed a text message and sent it out, sever business cooperation with the Xu family. But, invite them to attend the Qingyun Tower dinner. Chapter 5, See you for the last time. Seaview Villa area. On the high fence, there are rose thorns entwined with a noble atmosphere. The mottled light and shadow of the courtyard shine through the gaps and fall onto the ground of the courtyard, reflecting the luxury of the entire courtyard. The yard was filled with rich spiritual energy. As soon as Lin Jiang stepped into the yard, his dantian began to stir unconsciously, which made him very happy. After taking Lin Jiang around the entire villa, Qining Chu asked softly, "How is it here?" "Yeah, not bad." Lin Jiang nodded sincerely. Qining Chu smiled lightly, revealing 2 charming dimples. "If you need anything in the future, feel free to contact me." Looking at the spring-like smile of the beauty in front of him, Lin Jiang's heart felt warm and comfortable, as if a dried-up riverbed was suddenly filled with streams of clear water. Qining Chu smiled and said softly, "It's getting late. You should get used to the place first. I should go back now." As soon as she finished speaking, Qining Chu left, leaving only a faint fragrance lingering in Lin Jiang's nostrils. Looking around at all the luxury, Lin Jiang suddenly felt a dreamlike feeling in his heart, and then his cold eyes became firm. It seems that only if your fists are strong enough can you get everything you want. No matter how good the Qin family is to me, it is just a favor. Thinking of this, Lin Jiang tidied himself up a bit and then sat cross-legged. The golden light in his mind reappeared. The Shinong Sutra can actually absorb the patient's disease focus into one's own body, transform it into spiritual energy, and use it for one's own benefit. Lin Jiang's eyes were filled with surprise. Practicing medicine and curing illnesses, saving the world, won't I be getting stronger with every step in the future? Taking a deep breath, Lin Jiang closed his eyes and began to practice. At this time, the surrounding spiritual energy began to swirl around his body and was absorbed into his dantian. Before long, the spiritual energy in his dantian, which was originally only the size of a green bean, condensed into the size of a fingernail. The next morning, Lin Jiang opened his eyes and looked out the window at the vast misty clouds and the magnificent sea. A sense of detachment lingered in his heart. Looking far from a height, I can see the spiritual energy whistling everywhere. This is indeed a good place. I might as well get familiar with the surrounding environment first. The picturesque scenery around made Lin Jiang feel better, but at this moment, an unfriendly voice suddenly sounded behind him. "Are you Lin Jiang?" Lin Jiang looked back and saw a burly man with big tattoos on his arms suddenly blocking the door. Behind him was a group of younger brothers, all with fierce eyes, and it was obvious that they were here with bad intentions. Lin Jiang's eyes fixed, and he asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "I thought Brother Tiger asked me to teach a lesson to some powerful person. Turns out it's just a lousy bodyguard." Zhang Meng played with the baton in his hand and took a look at Lin Jiang's clothes. A look of disdain appeared on his face covered with hideous scars. "Boy, if you mess with young Master Shu's woman, you can't blame me for coming here today to cripple one of your legs." "Mr. Shu." Lin Jiang's expression turned gloomy. "Shu Xian, right? Cow. Do you, a loser like you, have the right to call out Master Shu's name?" Zhang Meng's tone suddenly turned cold. "A useless idiot like you is not even worthy of carrying Mr. Shu's shoes. I heard that Master Shu cheated on you. Why don't you thank Master Shu for his kindness?" Har har har. Hearing this, the younger brother behind Zhang Meng laughed so hard that he fell backwards. "You're looking for death." Lin Jiang's figure suddenly moved forward. Bang! A sharp slap hit Zhang Meng's face hard, knocking him to the ground. Zhang Meng touched the blood on his face, his eyes suddenly spitting fire, and he roared at Lin Jiang, "Damn it! Come on! Kill him! You're courting death." As he spoke, Lin Jiang's thin figure appeared among the crowd like a shura, and in an instant, most of the people fell to the ground. "I just don't believe that with all of us here today, we can't kill you, little bastard." Zhang Meng picked up a baton with a ferocious look on his face and rushed towards Lin Jiang viciously. Lin Jiang frowned and punched down again. "R!" With a loud cracking sound, half of Zhang Meng's face was smashed and dented, and he let out a shrill scream. How could he, this loser, be so powerful? Feeling the horrible pain all over his body, Zhang Meng couldn't help but break out in cold sweat on his forehead. Filled with endless fear, Zhang Meng began to retreat. At this moment, Lin Jiang appeared behind him again. What are you going to do?" Zhang Meng's lips trembled, and he shouted with a guilty conscience, I tell you, I am Tiger Lord's man. If you dare to kill me, Tiger Lord will definitely kill you, R." Before Zhang Meng could finish his words, Lin Jiang kicked him hard in the chest, causing his whole body to fly backwards like a kite with a broken string and fall heavily to the ground. "Master Tiger." Lin Jiang stepped on Zhang Meng's head and said condescendingly, "Even if the Tiger Lord you rely on comes, I will still do it." Zhang Meng's face turned pale. Feeling the murderous intent from Lin Jiang, he dared not be as arrogant as before. His lips trembled as he said, "Master, I was blind and didn't recognize the great man. I offended you. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me this time." Lin Jiang glanced at Zhang Meng, who was now as embarrassed as a dog, and sneered. He said grimly, "Go back and tell the Shu Shao you mentioned, and tell him to wash his head and wait. Sooner or later, I will take his dog head away." Bang! Lin Jiang raised the baton in his hand suddenly, and with a swish sound, a deep crack appeared on Zhang Meng's crotch, which scared him so much that it became wet. Lin Jiang shouted angrily, "Get out of here!" Zhang Meng didn't dare to delay for a moment. He hurriedly got up from the ground, crawling and staggering as he ran towards the distance. As the distance between him and Lin Jiang grew larger, Zhang Meng's eyes became more and more resentful. "You little bastard, when Lord Tiger comes, you will be dead." The trouble was solved. Lin Jiang raised his eyes to look at the group of thugs who were fleeing in a panic, and finally his gaze fell on the sticks scattered on the ground. His originally hollow eyes became even deeper at this moment. "Chen Shui, Shu Xian. Just wait for me. I will use my own strength to crush you step by step." Just as Lin Jiang silently bent down and started picking up the sticks, his cell phone suddenly rang. Lin Jiang looked at the familiar caller ID and his expression became a little complicated. After thinking it over again and again, he pressed the answer button. After the call was connected, a vicissitudes and extremely weak voice came, "Xiao Jiang, where are you? It is our Chen family who is sorry for you." Lin Jiang's eyes turned red. "Grandpa." "Ahem." Violent coughing and weak breathing sounds came from the phone. "Grandpa doesn't have much time left now. Can I see you one last time?" Chapter 6, Just Die. "Okay, Grandpa, I promise you." Feeling the weak and lingering voice of Mr. Chen, Lin Jiang felt a pang of pain in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally agreed. During the 3 years since he married into the Chen family, Lin Jiang had been looked down upon and despised by countless people. Only old Master Chen treated him as his own son and cared for him like a family member. What's more, now that I have obtained the inheritance of Shenong Temple, how can I just stand by and watch him die? Grandpa, don't worry, you will be fine. Staring at the phone that had been disconnected long ago, Lin Jiang muttered to himself, his eyes becoming deep. In the intensive care unit of Qianhai City Hospital, old man Chen, who was lying on the hospital bed, had two skinny eyes that were sunken, and his whole body was like a dying candle, swaying and seemed about to go out at any time. Brother-in-law, how is that bastard Lin Jiang doing now? Have you tried to seek justice for me and my sister? When Lin Jiang was mentioned, Chen Yaoyao's eyes immediately became as vicious as a poisonous snake. Xu Xian's hands were dishonestly groping up and down Chen Shui's waist, and he vowed, I said that I would make sure that rubbish never sees the sun today, and it must be never seen. Chen Shui showed a smug look in her eyes. Master Xu specially asked Tiger Lord to settle this matter. I guess Lin Jiang has been crushed to ashes by Tiger Lord's men now. That idiot should die and be reincarnated as soon as possible. At this time, Chen Shui's mother Liu Chunmai said something vicious, and then looked at Xu Xian with a smile. My son-in-law is still the most capable. With just one phone call, he can make that annoying guy disappear completely. Then I think I should disappoint you. A cold word exploded in the ward, causing the temperature in the entire ward to suddenly drop by several degrees. Everyone hurriedly looked towards the door, only to find Lin Jiang's figure suddenly appeared in their sight. Lin Jiang! Everyone's eyes were fixed in disbelief, and then they all became resentful. Xu Xian looked at Lin Jiang with a gaze like poisonous stings, gritting his teeth and saying, Zhang Meng, that rubbish didn't even kill you. Lin Jiang's face condensed, and then he sneered, you two dogs and bitches are still alive, how can I die? You better keep your mouth shut, you wimp. Seeing that Lin Jiang dared to speak to him so arrogantly, Xu Xian's face flushed with anger, and veins all over his body bulged. That rubbish Zhang Meng couldn't kill you, so I don't believe that no one in the entire Qianhai city can kill you. Lin Jiang's eyes fell on the octogenarian lying on the hospital bed, his eyes slightly reddened, and he was about to break into the ward. However, Chen Shui blocked the door and said, What do you want to do, you loser? I'm telling you, don't bring your bad luck into the ward. Chen Yaoyao even sarcastically said, How can a piece of trash who was kicked out of our Chen family be qualified to come here to see our grandfather? Are you still thinking about our Chen family's property? Get out of here. Get out of my way. Lin Jiang spoke angrily, his face gloomy, and his whole body exuded a terrifying aura. He had never had any thoughts about the Chen family's property. Now, he just wanted to use his medical skills to completely free Mr. Chen from the torment of illness. What right do you have to scold me, you wimp? What does this have to do with you? Chen Shui was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She screamed in anger, let me tell you. Even though Grandpa said that he would give you a portion of the family property, we are divorced now. You, a piece of trash, are not qualified to get it. Get out of here. My grandpa doesn't want to see you. Puff. Just at this moment, old man Chen, who was unable to speak, spat out a large mouthful of blood, and the scarlet blood immediately covered the entire bed. The instrument beside the bed began to make a beeping sound, and the electrocardiogram seemed to have turned into a straight line. Grandfather. Dad. Seeing this, everyone in the Chen family rushed to the old man's side. Lin Jiang's face changed drastically. He wanted to break in, but Xu Xian was blocking the door with a grin. You are a loser, not even worthy of a dog. What qualifications do you have to go in and see people? Let me tell you, only I can save the old man. I can invite Dr. Zhao over with just one phone call. Can you? When Xu Xian was feeling proud, Liu Chunmai hurried over and looked at Lin Jiang with disdain. Why are you still standing there, you useless piece of shit? Why don't you get out of here? Liu Chunmai turned her head to look at Xu Xian, and her expression improved a lot. My dear son-in-law, your grandfather is dying now. You should call Dr. Zhao and ask him to come and save him. It's just a small matter. Leave it to me. Xu Xian's face was full of pride, and he glanced at Lin Jiang proudly. A good dog doesn't block the road. Get out of my way. Xu Xian was domineering and aggressive. He pushed Lin Jiang's shoulder away violently and walked towards the depths of the corridor holding the phone. There was a flash of hostility in Lin Jiang's eyes, but saving people was the most important thing at the moment. Feeling the increasingly weak breath of Mr. Chen in the house, he clenched his fists nervously. The only thing we can do now is to break in and save people. Stop. Liu Chunmai pointed her finger at Lin Jiang's nose and screamed, if you dare to come in, I will call the police right now. You. Lin Jiang glanced at Liu Chunmai coldly, knowing that there was no way out by forcing his way in, so he could only leave temporarily. But thinking that the old man was now critically ill and time was so urgent, he could only grit his teeth and call Qin Ningqiu, Miss Qin, do me a favor. Help. A hint of surprise flashed across Qin Ningqiu's beautiful eyes. It just so happens that I was just about to pick you up to nurse my grandfather back to health. Tell me first, what's the matter? Lin Jiang said in a deep voice, does the city hospital have a good cardiologist or brain doctor? My grandfather needs surgery immediately. Qin Ningqiu frowned slightly, a hint of surprise appeared on her pretty face, but she felt the urgency in the other party's tone and immediately agreed. Okay, Zhao Dongyarn happens to be the best doctor in the Department of Cardiovascular and Brain Sciences. I will arrange it for you right away. At the same time, in the toilet next to him, an angry voice came from Xuxian's phone. Useless, once that old man from the Chen family dies, won't it be easier for him to get the Chen family's property? Why are you still helping them find a doctor? Xuxian had a worried look on his face. Dad. But I have already promised them that I will invite a doctor over. I think you've been flattered by those idiots from the Chen family so much that you don't even know your last name. Before Xuxian finished speaking, Xu Qinmin stopped him in a stern voice. What kind of person is Dr. Zhao? With our family's status, we are not worthy of his attention, so how can we invite him here? You also understand the current situation of our Xu family. What you need to do now is to cheat all the money from the Chen family for your father as soon as possible. I don't want you to be a pushover. Let him die. Chapter 7, Get Out of Here. Dad. Just as Xuxian was about to explain a few more words, Xu Qinmin suddenly hung up the phone in a hurry, leaving only a cold and harsh busy tone. How can we conceal this? Xuxian held the phone nervously, pacing while constantly thinking in his mind how he should explain to the Chen family. Mr. Xu, what's going on? At this time, Liu Chunmai came over nervously, her eyes full of expectation. Is the doctor coming soon? Xuxian's eyes dodged subconsciously. Just as he was thinking about how to fool the man, he saw Zhao Dongyang running over in a hurry with many nurses and assistants behind him, shouting, Quick! Hurry up and prepare the patient for surgery. Xuxian's eyes suddenly widened, and he pointed at Zhao Dongyang who was not far away. Look! Here it comes. Everyone in the Chen family looked at the doctors and nurses who had already begun preparing for the operation, with surprise in their eyes. Under the gaze of their whole family, Chen Shui proudly put her arm around Xuxian's arm, and when she glanced at Xuxian, she revealed a hint of little woman's shyness. Mom, did you see that? This is the man that I, Chen Shui, really want. A man who can save our Chen family from danger anytime and anywhere. Liu Chunmai nodded, then glanced at Lin Jiang who was not far away, and said with disdain, the old man was really blind to marry my daughter Shui to such a loser. Apart from eating our Chen family's food for free, he can't help us with anything. It has to be my good son-in-law, Master Xu. With just a simple phone call, he was able to invite the famous Dr. Zhao over. Lin Jiang, who was standing by, sneered in his heart when he heard the Chen family's words of flattery. He stood up and said meaningfully, Are you sure that divine Dr. Zhao was invited by your good son-in-law? Looking at Lin Jiang's slightly playful eyes, Xuxian's heart skipped a beat. Feeling guilty, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Har har. Lin Jiang, what do you mean by that? If it wasn't the genius Dr. Zhao invited by young Master Xu, could it be a useless person like you who has no skills at all? Chen Yaoyao crossed her arms over her chest and looked down at Lin Jiang. Don't think that everyone is a waste like you. Master Xu is the real savior of our Chen family. Lin Jiang's chest was filled with rage. He had never thought that the Chen family would be so shameless, so he said in a deep voice, Yes, I did invite Dr. Zhao. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone around burst into laughter. Liu Chunmai laughed so hard that she fell backwards. She pointed at Lin Jiang's nose and said sarcastically, People need face, just like trees need bark. A person can be without money, but he cannot even lose his own face. This is clearly young Master Xu's achievement, but you want to claim it for yourself. This will only make us feel even more ashamed of you, a piece of trash. Xuxian straightened his back at this moment, looking at Lin Jiang with disdain in his eyes. If you ask me, the reason this loser said that must be that he is still thinking about the Chen family's property. Lin Jiang, today I'm telling you this. No matter how much property Mr. Chen promised to give you, now that I'm here, you can't take it away. Shameless. Lin Jiang clenched his fists tightly, his face turning red with anger. Just when he was about to continue arguing, Qi Ningqiu called him. Lin Jiang, how are things going up there? I'm downstairs in the hospital now, do you want me to go up and help you deal with it? Qi Ningqiu's sweet and charming voice came from the phone, which immediately suppressed Lin Jiang's anger. It's all right now. Lin Jiang took a deep look at the group of people in front of him and continued, I'll go down to find you now. Looking at Lin Jiang's sudden departure, the Chen family's eyes were filled with contempt. Xu Xian also raised his chin complacently, see, as soon as I confronted him, he really ran away. Trash is indeed trash. Liu Chunmai sneered, then turned her head and looked at Xu Xian with a smile, saying, my son-in-law is still capable. When Lin Jiang arrived downstairs at the hospital, he saw Qi Ningqiu wearing a casual floral dress. Although the dress was loose, it still couldn't hide her flawless figure. Under her slender and fair calves, a pair of white sneakers showed her youthfulness. Seeing Lin Jiang, Qi Ningqiu gently stroked the hair beside her ears and asked softly, you look a little strange, is it because you haven't dealt with the matter above? Do you want me to help you deal with it? Lin Jiang shook his head. Fortunately, at least with Dr. Zhao, Mr. Chen's life is saved. Qi Ningqiu looked at Lin Jiang deeply, as if thinking about something, and then continued, since it has been dealt with almost completely, why not go to my house? It just so happens that my grandfather still needs you to do a few more acupuncture treatments. Seeing the expectation in Qi Ningqiu's long eyes, Lin Jiang's mind was rejuvenated. Thanks to your Qin family for such a great favor, I will definitely go to the Qin family. Lin Jiang and Qi Ningqiu smiled at each other, and then drove to Qin's house together. The Qin family's manor is located in the suburbs of Qianhai City. Its large area and magnificent garden design all demonstrate the Qin family's status and strength. Boss Qin! Boss Qin! Just as Lin Jiang and Qi Ningqiu got off the car, a hoarse roar was heard. Lin Jiang and the other man looked in the direction of the voice and saw a man in a dusty suit appear in front of them. Liu Qiang. A hint of surprise flashed across Qi Ningqiu's beautiful eyes. After seeing the man named Liu Qiang, she asked in a serious tone, how did you become like this? Liu Qiang put his hands on his waist, took a deep breath, and said hurriedly, Boss Qin, a project I cooperated with someone has suffered losses, which has caused financial problems for the company. Now we urgently need 10 million to run it. Qi Ningqiu frowned slightly. Liu Qiang continued to plead, we have been partners for many years, you must save me. You know my character, and I now have a new money-making project. As long as you can lend it to me, I will definitely pay you back as soon as possible. After taking a look at the disheveled Liu Qian with a pair of clear eyes, Qi Ningqiu felt a trace of pity in her heart. In that case, don't rush to lend it to him. Before Qi Ningqiu could finish her words, Lin Jiang patted her sleeve gently and put her in front of him. Qi Ningqiu looked a little surprised and stared at Lin Jiang with wide eyes. Lin Jiang looked at Liu Qiang in front of him calmly, with a hint of coldness flashing across his brows. He said in a deep voice, the company's losses are your own fault. President Qin has no obligation to lend you the 10 million. Get out. Chapter 8 Hope it's not too late. Lin Jiang, you. Qi Ningqiu's brows were tightly furrowed, her pretty face turned slightly red with anger, and her delicate body was trembling slightly. He never thought that Lin Jiang would be so good at talking to Liu Qiang. Miss Qin, I'll explain it to you later. Lin Jiang looked back at Qi Ningqiu meaningfully. He knew why she was angry, but he did not explain too much. Instead, he continued to speak coldly to Liu Qiang, cooperation is not about binding together. President Qin is not a philanthropist. It is impossible for her to lend 10 million to everyone when their company encounters problems. A hint of viciousness flashed across Liu Qiang's eyes, which disappeared in an instant. He then cast his gaze on Qi Ningqiu and begged again, Boss Qin, I beg you, I really. Get out of here. With a roar, Lin Jiang's eyes suddenly became sharp. He looked at Liu Qiang coldly, giving people an innate sense of oppression. It felt like Lin Jiang was ready to kill someone at any time. The shudder from his soul made Liu Qiang tremble all over. He didn't dare to stay any longer and fled in a hurry. He almost stumbled and fell in panic. After the matter was settled, Lin Jiang saw that Qi Ningqiu's expression was still somewhat unhappy, so he asked with a smile, what's wrong? Did I make Miss Qin angry just now? Qi Ningqiu still frowned slightly and said angrily, Liu Qiang is a long-term partner of our company. You have to let me find out what happened to him first. Suddenly, she seemed to be thinking about something, and some strange thoughts flashed through her mind. She looked up at Lin Jiang and continued, "Did you see something?" Lin Jiang nodded, looked at the direction where Liu Qiang left, and said in a deep voice, "Chinese medicine emphasizes observation, auscultation, questioning and palpation, so I can see that this person has the sign of losing money, and it is due to his own reasons. There must be something unspeakable behind this. If you really help, this disaster might implicate you yourself." Hearing this, Qining Qiu asked doubtfully, "Is it really that serious?" Lin Jiang smiled faintly, with a confident light in his eyes, "I believe that this issue will be proven by facts after a while." As they were talking, they had already entered the main hall. Qin Shifeng was lying on a recliner with a cup of hot tea on the small table next to him, looking very relaxed. "Mr. Qin, long time no see." Lin Jiang bowed politely to Qin Shifeng. Qin Shifeng slowly stood up and praised with a smile, "Xiao Lin, since I received your treatment last time, my body is much stronger than before." After a few pleasantries, Lin Jiang began the acupuncture treatment on Qin Shifeng. Lin Jiang took out a few silver needles from his fingertips and said seriously, "Old Qin's veins are much better now. If you take the new prescription I prescribed, I believe it will take a few days for him to recover completely. Then I have to thank you, Mr. Lin, for saving my life." Qin Shifeng showed an excited look on his face, and then he seemed to remember something and asked, "Did you see that brat Liu Qiang at the door today?" Qining Qiu nodded slightly and said truthfully, "He wanted to borrow 10 million from us, but, in the end we didn't lend it to him. Humph. This bastard is not doing his job properly and is addicted to gambling. Now he even wants to borrow money from us. It's really pathetic." Qin Shifeng snorted coldly and couldn't help but complain a few words. A hint of surprise flashed across Qining Qiu's pretty face, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but fall on Lin Jiang. Lin Jiang smiled without saying a word. He twisted the silver needle from his fingertips and gently inserted it into Qin Shifeng's acupuncture points, starting to clear his meridians. "By the way, Xiaoqiu, how is the Shu family's affairs being handled?" Qin Shifeng looked at his granddaughter and continued, "I have sent people to investigate. The Shu family's current business is just an empty shell, so it is wise for you to sever cooperation with them." Qining Qiu said with some disgust, "Not only does the Shu family rely on our Qin family's bully power to do some shameful things outside, but the Shu family has even been so arrogant as to insult me. For a family like this, I'm sure Grandpa would not be ashamed to cooperate with them." As she finished speaking, Qining Qiu's beautiful eyes subconsciously glanced at Lin Jiang, who was giving acupuncture beside her. "Shu family." Lin Jiang couldn't help but murmur in his heart, and a look of suspicion appeared in his eyes, but he didn't say it directly. After the acupuncture was completed, Lin Jiang walked to the nearby inkstone and began to write the word "pharmacy" for Mr. Qin. Qining Qiu stood quietly aside, looking at Lin Jiang's powerful lines and secretly praising him in her heart. Lin Jiang asked casually, "The Shu family you just mentioned, is it the family that Shu Xian belongs to?" Qining Qiu looked at Lin Jiang deeply, hesitated for a moment and nodded, "That's right." Hearing the exact answer, Lin Jiang paused for a moment, thinking deeply. Then he wrote out the prescription in one go and handed it to Qining Qiu. "Just boil the daily medicine over medium heat for 3 hours. Don't rush." After giving a few instructions about the prescription, Lin Jiang continued, "I still have some things to deal with at home, so I won't bother you anymore." Qin Shifeng laughed, "You young people have things to do, little friend Lin, just go ahead and do it." Lin Jiang nodded neither humbly nor arrogantly, and then left. "Girl, what are you looking at?" Looking at Qining Qiu's eager eyes, Qin Shifeng, as an old fox, saw the clue at a glance and asked with a smile, "That night banquet must be held for him, right?" Qining Qiu nodded, then smiled, "Grandpa, I have a feeling that in the future, Lin Jiang will definitely become the most eye-catching person in Qianhai and even the entire Daxia. I just wanted to help him stir up trouble at this banquet." Walking out of the Qin family's door, Lin Jiang's eyes became a little complicated. Besides being nervous, he began to hesitate in his heart. Shu Xian's appearance at Chen's house must have been accompanied by some ill intentions. But given my current situation, even if I tell him, will anyone in the Chen family believe me? Thinking of the kindness that Mr. Chen had shown him in the past, Lin Jiang's eyes became firm. He gritted his teeth and rushed towards the hospital, muttering, "I hope it's not too late." Chapter 9, Confusion of Right and Wrong. As night falls, the hospital wards are brightly lit. After Zhao Dongyang's rescue and treatment, all of Mr. Chen's data have returned to normal and his breathing has become unusually stable. Dad. Grandfather. You finally woke up. As bursts of shrill cheers came from the ward, Chen Shichi slowly opened his slightly cloudy eyes. Am I alive now? Chen Shichi, who had just recovered from a serious illness, looked around with a confused look in his eyes. Liu Chunmai excitedly grabbed her father-in-law's hand. Dad. You were saved by Zhao Dongyang, the famous doctor in Tianhai City. And Zhao only came here for the sake of your grandson-in-law, Master Shu. Hearing this, Chen Shichi's gaze fell on Xu Xian not far away, and a hint of suspicion flashed in his eyes. Yes, Grandpa, young Master Shu made a random phone call and scared the genius Dr. Zhao so much that he rushed over to perform surgery on you. Chen Shui raised her chin slightly, her face full of pride. Besides, young Master Shu's company is preparing to start a big project with the Qin group, and he generously let our Chen family participate. With the strength of the Qin family in Tianhai, the projects that can be cooperated with them are all large projects worth hundreds of millions of yuan. Xu Xian waved his hand casually. Now that Shuer has become my woman, our Shu family and Chen family are one family. If we have such a good project, we should do it together. What's more, this project is now in cooperation with the Qin family. With such a big family as the Qin family to back it up, we will definitely not lose money. Liu Chuanmei's eyes showed a greedy look. He must be my good son-in-law. He never forgets to think about our Chen family no matter what he does. But my dear son-in-law, is this project really risk-free? Xu Xian frowned slightly and pretended to be angry. You are Shui's family, and even more so my family. How could I be like that loser Lin Jiang and cheat you? I'm just giving you an option to invest in this money-making project. If you believe in me, we can make money together. If you don't believe me, we can still be a family. Xu Xian's words moved everyone in the Shu family again. Even Mr. Chen, who was lying on the hospital bed, looked much more relaxed at this moment. A project to make money together? That sounds ridiculous. Just as Xu Xian was about to continue talking, Lin Jiang's voice exploded again from the ward. Everyone looked over and saw Lin Jiang standing at the door of the ward. He looked at Xu Xian with a hint of amusement in his eyes. A company that has long been eliminated by the Qin family actually wants to continue to defraud money under the guise of the Qin family. Your Shu family really has a good plan. Xu Xian was so angry that his face turned pale. But before he could say anything, Liu Chunmai stood up and said angrily, "What are you doing here again, you coward? Didn't I tell you that we don't welcome you in the Chen family?" Chen Shui even mocked directly, "Lin Jiang, don't think I don't know why you come here now. Don't you want to take advantage of my grandfather's awakening to come and ask for money? Let me tell you, even if I give the money of my Chen family to a dog, I will never give it to you. Get out of here right now." Facing the scolding from the crowd, Lin Jiang sneered in his heart. He didn't want to continue arguing with this group of people, so he set his eyes on Mr. Chen, who had just woken up not far away. "Grandpa, I just learned from the Qin family that the Shu family is suffering from severe internal losses and is about to declare bankruptcy at any time." Seeing the old man's body gradually recovering, Lin Jiang's eyes slightly reddened, and then continued, "Now they are so eager to use new projects as a gimmick to attract investment, they are already preparing to run away with the money. You are a piece of trash and you are slandering me." Hearing this, before old man Chen could say anything, Xu Xian jumped out in a hurry and angrily rebuked, "The influence of my Shu family in Tianhai City is obvious to all. How could we do such a despicable thing as running away with the money?" Lin Jiang sneered again, "I'm slandering you? Do you dare to go to the Qin family with me and confront Miss Qin? Lin Jiang, I really didn't expect that a loser like you would still be bragging even after all this." Facing this former brother-in-law, Chen Yaoyao's disgust became even stronger. "How dare a loser like you mention the Qin family? Let me tell you, you are not even qualified to carry shoes for the Qin family." Lin Jiang's face was gloomy. "Believe it or not, we can just go to the Qin family and find out." Liu Chunmai glared at Lin Jiang with disdain, then looked at old man Chen on the bed and said loudly, "Dad, look, this is the son-in-law you brought in. You just recovered from a serious illness and you come here to cause trouble. If you ask me, he just wants you to die, and wants to piss off our whole family so that he can take all the Chen family's wealth. That's enough." Old Master Chen roared, and all the hair on his body trembled with anger. The entire ward became quiet in an instant. "Xiaojiang, why have you become like this now? Old Master Chen looked at Lin Jiang with disappointment. His eyes turned red and his voice almost choked. Is money so important to you now? Grandpa remembers that you were not such a greedy person before. Boom. Mr. Chen's words struck Lin Jiang's heart like a bolt from the blue, leaving him stunned in place. Grandpa, now even you are unwilling to believe me. After Lin Jiang finished speaking, what came back was endless silence with old man Chen lowering his head. Lin Jiang's face suddenly turned red, and a nameless anger surged in his heart. Okay. Since even Old Master Chen doesn't believe me, then I have nothing more to say. Please take care of yourself in the days ahead. After Lin Jiang said this angrily, he turned around and left the hospital. TSK, I thought this loser was going to be so arrogant. But in the end, it's just thunder without rain. I hope I never see this piece of trash again. The eyes of each member of the Chen family were filled with disgust, but a barely noticeable sinister smile appeared at the corner of Xu Xian's mouth. He turned his head and looked at everyone in the Chen family. Next, let me tell you about our new project. Walking on the streets of Qianhai City, Lin Jiang's face was gloomy to the extreme, and the anger in his chest was surging. He didn't expect that even Mr. Chen had been bewitched by Xu Xian. Before he knew it, Lin Jiang had reached the door of his villa. But at this moment, the door of his house was surrounded by dozens of thugs with sticks. The leader was a strong man with a long scar at the corner of his mouth, which was hideous and terrifying, making people afraid. The man raised his head and looked at Lin Jiang, his eyes filled with murderous intent. You are Lin Jiang. Chapter 10 Invitation. Zhang Meng stood next to the man. The moment he saw Lin Jiang, his eyes instantly turned resentful and he shouted angrily, Master Tiger. It was this kid who not only angered Master Shu, but also injured more than a dozen of our brothers. Yang Jin, who looked at Lin Jiang's thin body for a few times, and his eyes showed deep disdain. You injured my men in my territory. Do you want to die? Lin Jiang glanced at Zhang Meng calmly and said calmly, they were the ones who started the fight. They deserve to be injured. Cow. Lord Tiger, this kid is so arrogant, just kill him. He who beat up our people should make this bastard pay with his life. The group of men behind Yang Jin who suddenly became agitated, clenching their weapons tightly, with murderous glares in their eyes. Yang Jin, whose face also turned gloomy in an instant. He raised the machete in his hand and pointed it at Lin Jiang. You have to look at the owner before you beat the dog. You beat up my people, and you dare to be so arrogant. Do you think I can't kill you, a piece of shit? Today I will give you one last chance. If you kowtow and admit your mistakes, I will leave you with an intact body. Let me admit my mistake to you, are you worthy? Lin Jiang sneered, and looked at Yang Jin with a cold and sharp gaze like a sword drawn from its sheath. Fuck. Brothers, come on. Kill this son of a bitch. When have I ever suffered such an injustice in Qianhai City? Yang Jin, whose already ugly face became even more ferocious. After a roar, he was the first to rush over with the machete in his hand. Yang Jin, just try and touch him. A cold rebuke was heard, making the temperature around them seem to become a little colder. Yang Jin hurriedly stopped and looked in the direction of their voice. Qiningqiu was slowly walking towards him. Snap. Yang Jin, whose face turned ugly in an instant, and the machete in his hand slid to the ground. Looking at Yang Jin strange behavior, Lin Jiang's mouth curled up into a faint smile. Master Tiger, this girl is really pretty. I never thought this loser could be so lucky. Master Tiger, if you like, the brothers will tie you to the bed. The moment the men behind Yang Jin saw Qiningqiu, their eyes became hot and obscene words kept coming out of their mouths. Qiningqiu's delicate face seemed to be covered with a thick layer of frost, and her eyes were like sharp knives. Yang Jin, is this how you discipline your men? What the hell? Bang. Yang Jin, face turned pale, and he hit those men who spoke out loudly. The sound of broken bones and wailing in pain suddenly rang out. Master Tiger, the one you should hit is the one called Lin Jiang. The men who were beaten looked at Master Hu with a look of grievance. Tiger Lord was so frightened that beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He had no time to explain to these useless subordinates. He hurriedly asked Qiningqiu respectfully, Qin, Boss Qin, why are you here? The group of younger brothers who were originally sneering were stunned in an instant, looking at everything happening in front of them in disbelief. Lord Tiger, who is notorious in Qianhai City, is actually so respectful to a woman at this moment? Master Tiger. Chininchu asked coldly, Yang Jinhu, you are so powerful now. You have been able to make it to this point in Qianhai City. Have you forgotten who supported you to this point? Let me tell you, Lin Jiang is my grandfather's savior, and even more so the Qin family's benefactor. If you want to touch him, you will become an enemy of our Qin family. Boom! Yang Jinhu was stunned on the spot, as if struck by a bolt from the blue. He looked at Lin Jiang not far away in disbelief. Yang Jinhu's legs suddenly went weak, and he knelt down in front of Chininchu in fear, begging, Qin, Boss Qin, I know I was wrong, please forgive me. Chininchu glanced at Yang Jinhu coldly and said in a cold voice, it's not me who needs you to apologize. Yes. Hearing this, Yang Jinhu quickly turned around and knelt down towards Lin Jiang. Mr. Lin, I was blind and didn't recognize a great man, so I ended up offending you. I really know I was wrong now. Please spare my life. I will never dare to do it again. Facing Yang Jinhu's pleading, Lin Jiang looked indifferent and showed no sign of forgiving him at all. Yang Jinhu pleaded several times to no avail, and a determined look appeared in his eyes. He immediately picked up a machete beside him and said in a serious tone, Mr. Lin, I know that a verbal apology is not sincere now, so do you think this will work? Before he finished speaking, Yang Jinhu directly raised the machete in his hand and swung it with a click. Ar! Yang Jinhu let out a scream, and blood splattered everywhere. The little finger of his left hand was cut off. Such an action made Lin Jiang's eyes flash with surprise. Enduring the pain, Yang Jinhu looked at Lin Jiang tremblingly, gritting his teeth and insisting, Mr. Lin, please spare my life. After glancing at Yang Jinhu, Lin Jiang's eyes fell on Chininchu. You handle it. Chininchu nodded slightly, then looked at Yang Jinhu, who had become embarrassed at this time, and asked in a deep voice, did the Shu family send you here? Yang Jinhu nodded immediately, yes, Mr. Qin, it was that Shu Xian who bought Mr. Lin's life, so we came here. Chininchu looked at Lin Jiang deeply, then took out an invitation from her bag and threw it into Yang Jinhu's hand. This is my invitation to the Qin family's evening banquet. I'm not asking you to go because you are qualified, but to let you watch a good show. Yang Jinhu was slightly stunned, and after he reacted, he held the invitation tightly in his hand, and then kowtowed continuously to express his gratitude. Okay, you have nothing to do here, get out of here. Chininchu said the last sentence calmly and waved her hand. Okay, Mr. Qin. I'm going to get out of here right now. Yang Jinhu nodded repeatedly, then turned around, got into his van, and drove away. Everything returned to calm. Lin Jiang looked at Chininchu's delicate face, smiled and said gratefully, thank you for today. Is thanking others just a way of saying it? Chininchu smiled and blinked playfully. When Lin Jiang was slightly stunned, Chininchu handed him an invitation. Did you forget? Our Qin family will hold a night banquet in a few days, and all the celebrities in Qianhai City will be there. Grandpa and I both hope you can come, so we came to give you an invitation. Chapter 11. Is this your qualification to show off? I have specially invited the Shu family and the Chen family to this banquet for you. Chininchu showed a glimmer of hope in her eyes, because I hope you can show them at the night banquet that the person they look down upon is about to become a real dragon that can astonish the entire Qianhai City. Chininchu paused for a moment and continued, if we don't crush this kind of trash to death all at once, it will only cause trouble if we keep it. I'm helping you, and I'm also helping myself. Lin Jiang looked at Chininchu in astonishment, and his eyes gradually changed from confusion to determination. Okay. I will go to this night banquet. I really didn't expect that the Qin family would actually invite our Chen family to attend the dinner this time. This has never happened before. Inside the ward, looking at the invitation cards in their hands, the Chen family members' expressions became more and more excited. Liu Chunmai carefully looked at the invitation and praised loudly, now that we have a good son-in-law like Xu Xiao, it seems that our Chen family is really going to change its luck. Even the Qin family can personally send someone to deliver the invitation to the evening banquet to us. Chen Shui proudly held Xu Xian's arms, letting the big hands on her waist wander up and down without restraint, and said proudly, the most important thing is that the Qin family specially wrote my name on the invitation to young Master Xu. It's obvious that the Qin family wrote my name together with young Master Xu's name out of respect for young Master Xu. Xu Xian smiled and said, now that we are family, we should not be so formal. I tried my best to negotiate with the Qin family to invite the Chen family to the dinner. I want more than just the Shu family's rise. For sure, I will also work hard to make the Chen family's strength rise to a higher level in the entire Tianhai city. As he spoke, Xu Xian began to look forward to the night banquet and began to fantasize in his mind. Could it be that there was another reason why the Qin family was so determined to cut off cooperation with the Shu family some time ago? Just as Xu Xian was thinking secretly, Chen Yaoyao sat directly next to Grandpa Chen, her eyes shining. "Grandpa, did you see that? That's the famous Qin family in Tianhai City, and my brother-in-law actually managed to get us the opportunity to attend their dinner. There is absolutely no problem with my brother-in-law's project. We must not miss this opportunity now. Dad, the Shu family's business is well known in Tianhai, and their credit is absolutely reliable. What else do you have to worry about?" Seeing that Mr. Chen was still hesitant after her daughter finished speaking, Liu Chunmai hurriedly said, "What's more, Master Shu and we are family now." Old Master Chen looked at Xu Xian with his weathered eyes, but he was still hesitant. "You don't have to take this project too seriously. If the Chen family participates, it will just be a way for both of us to make a lot of money together." Xu Xian waved his hand casually, pretending to be righteous. "If you still have concerns, Mr. Chen, you don't have to cooperate. With Shuai's relationship, we will always be a family." As soon as Xu Xian used the tactic of playing hard to get, all the Chen family members present became anxious. Even the cloudy eyes of Mr. Chen, who had been silent just now, were filled with ripples. Seeing the strange look in Mr. Chen's eyes, Xu Xian was overjoyed and continued, "In addition, the most reliable thing about this project is its stability. Even if we lose money, our principal can be guaranteed 100%. Grandfather." Chen Shui and Xu Xian looked at each other and immediately sat on the other side of Mr. Chen. "Mr. Shu is your grandson-in-law, he will definitely not cheat our family. What are you still hesitating about? The time has come for you to lead our Chen family to soar to the sky." Hearing this, Mr. Chen's eyes became even more excited, and the look he gave Xu Xian became much gentler. Okay. Old Master Chen sighed several times, and then said to Xu Xian, "In this case, my Chen family will follow your Shu family in carrying out this project." As soon as Mr. Chen said this, the Chen family members became excited. In their eyes, after the night banquet, perhaps the day when the Chen family would soar to the sky is just around the corner. Xu Xian was even more delighted, but he still pretended to be calm on his face. He then took out the contract and pen that he had prepared long ago from his briefcase and handed them to Mr. Chen. "Grandpa, if the contract looks okay, let's sign it. This is a rare opportunity, so don't hesitate, Dad. It's time for our Chen family to regain its glory." The Chen family members began to become impatient. "Okay. I am really old. It is better for Shuai to find her ideal husband herself." There was a big smile on Mr. Chen's lips, and a greedy look rose in the depths of his eyes. He immediately signed the contract. Xu Xian looked at the contract in front of him, a sinister look flashing across his eyes. Just waiting for the night banquet at Qingyan Tower. Qingyan Tower. Built by the sea, as the top hotel in the entire Tianhai city, it is magnificent and every brick and tile seems to exude the scent of money. Today, as the venue for the Qin family's evening banquet, it appears more solemn than before. As a large-scale banquet for the entire upper class, it attracted countless people to watch. "How's it going, nervous?" In the underground parking lot, after Qin Ningqiu parked her mosher, she stared at Lin Jiang with her charming eyes. Today, Lin Jiang was wearing a dark blue suit, which made his already handsome appearance even more elegant. Lin Jiang raised his eyes to look at Qin Ningqiu, and just as he was about to speak, a sharp voice suddenly rang out. "What a damn bad luck. Why do I see a loser like you everywhere?" Chen Shui, wearing a sexy tight long skirt, slowly walked down from a Mercedes-Benz holding Xu Xian's arm. When she saw Lin Jiang, her eyes showed deep disgust. Chen Shui said disdainfully, "Lin Jiang, we no longer have any connection. I will never fancy a piece of trash like you again. Can you please stop sticking to me like a piece of taffy all day long? This parking lot is the parking lot of Qingyan Building. Are you qualified to come here?" Chen Shui's face was full of pride. "Let me tell you, today I was invited by the Qin family to attend the banquet with Master Shu." Xu Xian narrowed his eyes slightly, looked at Lin Jiang, smacked his lips. "Shui, you can't say that. Without your Chen family's money, this idiot will definitely come here to work as a waiter." "That's it." Lin Jiang sneered, "Is this what you are showing off? Chapter 12 Yang Jinhu's Contempt. Damn it, what do you mean? Xu Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Lin Jiang's outfit today with a look of disdain on his face. Then he cast his fiery gaze on Qi Ningqiu again. And you, what can he give you if you follow such a poor guy? You might as well go to my Shu family and be an assistant. I guarantee that you will have a good life. Facing the sarcasm of the couple, Qi Ningqiu's pretty face did not show any anger, but instead revealed a playful smile. Are you sure you can afford me to be your Shu family's assistant? Xu Xian sneered, with the strength and assets of my Shu family, who can't I invite? Even if it's the Qin family, what can they do? Don't they still have to respectfully hand over the invitation to this evening banquet to me? As he spoke, Xu Xian hugged Chen Shui's slender waist tightly and said with a fierce smile, even if it's the man next to you, I can make him cuckold whenever I want. As long as I have money, I can do whatever I want in the whole Tianhai city. Lin Jiang's face darkened, and he took a step forward. Say it to me again, and you try. Lin Jiang, there's no need to bother with these clowns now. Qi Ningqiu grabbed Lin Jiang's arm and said in a serious tone, good deeds will be rewarded with good, and evil deeds will be punished with evil. I believe that sooner or later they will receive retribution. You bitch. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you act so arrogant in front of us? Hearing Qi Ningqiu's words, Chen Shui showed an even more shameless smile, and then sneered, let me tell you, we are busy with a big money-making project recently, so we will let you jump around for 2 days. Sooner or later, your lives will completely disappear in Tianhai City. Xu Xian narrowed his eyes slightly, and said to Qi Ningqiu proudly, so, if you are sensible, you can take advantage of my good mood and come to work in our Shu family. Otherwise, you may also be dragged to death by this loser beside you. Hearing this, Lin Jiang's face became even gloomier. Just when he couldn't control his inner anger, Qi Ningqiu held Lin Jiang's arm even tighter. When Lin Jiang was puzzled, she explained softly, Lin Jiang, now is not the time for you to act on impulse. Believe me, that day is not far away. Qi Ningqiu looked at Lin Jiang deeply, and her pair of moving long eyes revealed an extremely determined look. The contempt in Chen Shui's eyes became even stronger. Har har. The excuses you two dogs came up with are really ridiculous. In the time you mentioned, I have already crushed that loser Lin Jiang to death. Qi Ningqiu's slightly flushed face was suddenly covered with a layer of frost. She looked at the two people in front of her coldly, but did not show her emotions. Instead, she squinted her eyes and smiled, I hope that after some time, your attitude will still be as arrogant as it is now. Before she finished her words, Qi Ningqiu grabbed Lin Jiang's arm and slowly walked towards the door of the parking lot. Were you acting a little strange just now? After leaving the parking lot, Lin Jiang did not rush to follow Qi Ningqiu to the banquet venue, but directly questioned Qi Ningqiu. Qi Ningqiu's beautiful eyes flickered slightly, and she smiled and said, I didn't expect that at such a young age, you are so alert. But you don't have to be afraid. The reason I don't want you to bother with them is because these two people can't jump around for 2 days. Looking at Qi Ningqiu's confident look as if she had won, Lin Jiang couldn't help but feel a little suspicious, but he didn't ask any further questions. Although he did not have much contact time with Qi Ningqiu, Lin Jiang believed that Qi Ningqiu said this because he must have his own arrangements. The actual venue of the banquet was in the most central place within the Qingyun Tower Manor. It was surrounded by lush greenery, and the rich fragrance of flowers was emitted under the green grass. Champagne and fine wine are displayed everywhere, and there are professional piano masters from abroad who are constantly playing the most beautiful music. Wow! Is this the work of the Qin family? Chen Shui saw that every cup at the banquet was made of crystal, and she couldn't help but become shocked. Xu Xian smiled proudly, then pinched Chen Shui's slender waist fiercely, narrowed his eyes and said, Shui, don't worry, now your Chen family has handed over all the family property to me, and this will be the worst life you will ever live in the future. Hearing this, the eyes of the Chen family members around them instantly lit up, and the corners of their slightly raised mouths couldn't help revealing greedy looks. Okay. Xiaoshu, the future of our Chen family is entirely in your hands. Old Master Chen laughed excitedly, and then drank the wine in his hand. Although he has not actually met the Qin family yet, in his eyes, this promise from his grandson-in-law is enough. Xu Xian's face was filled with smugness. Just as he was about to pretend to be humble again, he glanced to the side and his expression suddenly became fierce. Yang Jinhu, I really didn't expect that you are worthy of such a high-end place. Seeing Yang Jinhu, Xu Xian rushed forward and grabbed the corner of his clothes. Yang Jinhu was full of disdain. He grabbed Xu Xian's hand fiercely and threw it aside with all his strength. Why can I come? With your Xu family's current situation, they can come here, so why can't I? After the last contact with Lin Jiang, Yang Jinhu has thoroughly understood the details of the Xu group. Today's Xu family is already at the end of its strength and can only survive in a state of collapse. Perhaps today is the day when the Xu family will be destroyed. Thinking of this, Yang Jinhu's eyes narrowed slightly. As if sensing that Yang Jinhu knew something, Xu Xian interrupted Yang Jinhu before he could continue. I'm telling you, Yang Jinhu, you took my money but you didn't do anything for me. I'm not done with you for this matter. I'm telling you, don't say I'm going to be rich soon. Even with my current means, if I want to kill you, it's just a matter of saying a word. Master Xu, you are talking so much nonsense now, but please don't hurt your waist. There was a hint of amusement in Yang Jinhu's eyes. He left a meaningful word and left with a sneer, without arguing too much with Xu Xian. Yang Jinhu's rampant behavior made Xu Xian's face turn pale instantly. Isn't it just that the Qin family invited him to the screaming night banquet? What's the big deal? When I have time, I will kill you alone, Yang Jinhu. Just when Xu Xian's face turned gloomy, a pair of thugs gently touched his shoulders. Let me see what happened that made our Master Xu so angry. Chapter 13 will explain it to you right away. Mr. Zhao. Xu Xian looked over and saw a young man in a sky blue suit with an evil temperament standing in front of him. Seeing the young man in front of him, Xu Xian immediately smiled and hurriedly grabbed Zhao Gang's hand. I really didn't expect to see you, Master Zhao Gang, at the night banquet. Zhao Gang chuckled, his eyes swept over Chen Shui beside him, and praised Xu Xian in her ear. This woman has a good figure, let me play with her some other day. Xu Xian immediately exchanged a glance with Zhao Gang and smiled as if they understood each other. Zhao Gang was overjoyed, and immediately put his arm around Xu Xian, saying confidently, since you are such a good brother, Master Xu, I will also tell you something that many people attending this banquet don't know. Xu Xian frowned. Isn't the Qin family holding a night banquet this time just like before, just to win over the business operators in Qianhai City? Zhao Gang denied it directly and said, Mr. Xu, you are still too young and don't think much about business matters. I heard that the reason why the Qin family held the night banquet this time was mainly due to 3 reasons. 3 purposes. Hearing this, Xu Xian and the Chen family's eyes all fell on Zhao Gang. Although everyone was proud to be invited by the Qin family to attend this banquet, they were more interested in the real purpose of the Qin family hosting this banquet. Feeling the enthusiastic gazes of the crowd, Zhao Gang became more energetic. He deliberately put on airs and cleared his throat, then said, I heard that recently, some blind person angered Qin Yingqiu, the eldest daughter of the Qin family. The main reason why Miss Qin insisted on holding this banquet was to completely kill this blind guy. Xu Xian raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and a disdainful smile appeared in the corner of his eyes. A blind man like this angered the Qin family, and he deserved to be killed. Zhao Gang did not comment on this, but continued to speak with interest. The second reason is even more interesting. It is said that Miss Qin is going to promote someone recently, and it seems that the person is a young talent from our Qianhai city. But who is so lucky? That is really not something we can guess. At this point, Zhao Gang's eyes revealed a deep sense of envy, and he sighed, alas. It would be great if we were the one who could be appreciated by Miss Qin. The envy in Xu Xian's eyes became more intense, and he nodded in agreement, then said, yes. With the strength of the Qin family in our Qianhai, if Miss Qin really pays attention to me, even if I am a waste, I can become one of the most dazzling pearls in the entire Qianhai city in the future. Har har. Young Master Xu doesn't need to be too envious. Zhao Gang smiled and praised, I have heard from the grapevine that your Xu family is really going to be very successful recently. If that day ever comes, you must not forget about the brothers who used to play with us. Xu Xian waved his hand modestly, Mr. Zhao, you are really overpraising me. Our Xu family just did a simple small project, how can we say that we have made great success? Although he said this in front of Zhao Gang, the smug look on Xu Xian's face became even more intense. When the Chen family heard what Zhao Gang said, they looked at Xu Xian with admiration on their faces. Dad! Did you see that? Young Master Xu's friends can give such a good evaluation of this project. It seems that the rise of our Chen family is really just around the corner. Liu Chunmai spoke to Grandpa Chen with excitement, which made the Chen family members who had become a little restrained during the night banquet become more relaxed at this moment. That idiot actually sneaked into the night banquet club. Chen Yaoyao's sharp voice exploded in the crowd. When everyone looked, they saw Lin Jiang wandering around the manor with Qin Yingqiu. Since he had never eaten such delicious pastries before, Lin Jiang would take a piece from time to time, but he never thought that these actions were completely exposed to the eyes of the Chen family. Lin Jiang, who was originally chatting with Qiningqiu, looked up instantly after feeling many eyes on him, and was met with the cold gaze of Mr. Chen. Master. Lin Jiang wanted to go up and say hello, but after thinking for a moment, he decisively gave up the idea. I never thought, Lin Jiang, that a waiter like you could sneak into this high-end banquet. However, Chen Yaoyao did not think of letting Lin Jiang go directly. Instead, she walked up to him and started to yell at him, which made many celebrities attending the banquet turn their eyes to Lin Jiang. But everyone's eyes fell on Qiningqiu next to them, and their faces changed instantly. When Yang Jinhu saw this scene, he sneered in his heart, and his pair of murderous eyes stared deeply at his severed finger. Go ahead and make some noise. The more noise you make, the more fun I'll have watching you in a little while. Lin Jiang's eyes were as sharp as torches, but they were still calm. Looking at Chen Yaoyao's state, he sneered in his heart, how ridiculous. The Chen family has nothing now, and you can still turn a blind eye. Qiningqiu smiled, with a more playful look than Lin Jiang's. Sister, don't be so confident. Who knows, Miss Qin invited you in not to flatter you, but maybe she just wants to find an opportunity to trample you to death. You. Chen Yaoyao was so angry that her eyes widened like bells, and she looked like she wanted to tear Qiningqiu apart. She then looked at old man Chen angrily and said, Grandpa, look. The reason why this loser can talk to us like this is because this cheap woman who eats and drinks for free gives him the confidence. Old Master Chen snorted coldly, looking at Lin Jiang with anger in his eyes. I really didn't expect, Xiao Jiang, that you would be with such a woman for money. It seems that I was really blind to Marishwar to you. They are indeed right. You are indeed not worthy of being the son-in-law of my Chen family. Qiningqiu hurriedly looked at Lin Jiang, her beautiful eyes moving slightly, and she was imagining how Lin Jiang would react at this moment. However, Lin Jiang remained calm, glanced at the blushing old man Chen, and said with a smile, It is indeed me who has disappointed you, old man Chen. As he spoke, Lin Jiang led Qiningqiu forward. After walking a few steps, he looked back and said, As for whether what I said before was true or false, I think I will give you a real explanation soon, Mr. Chen. Chapter 14 Hello everyone, I am Lin Jiang. There's no point in talking anymore, let's go. After he finished speaking, Lin Jiang and Qiningqiu looked at each other and left immediately, leaving only the Chen family members standing aside and starting to get angry. Master Shu, look at this kid. He actually doesn't take our Chen and Shu families seriously. You must find someone to teach this coward a lesson in the future. Chen Shui shook Xu Xian's arm and acted coquettishly. Xu Xian's eyes narrowed, and his pupils became fierce. Don't worry, after our project is completely completed, I will teach him what reincarnation means. Boom boom boom. At this moment, countless fireworks exploded in the night sky, and countless ribbons floated down in the sky, which looked extremely romantic. The stage, which had been in a silent state, is now the focus of the spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome today's heroine, Miss Qiningqiu. Snap, snap. After the host finished speaking, Qiningqiu's graceful figure instantly appeared in everyone's eyes. At that time, Qiningqiu had changed into a white long dress. She looked like a fairy from heaven. She was so beautiful that she instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. After seeing Qiningqiu's appearance clearly, Xu Xian's eyes suddenly widened, and the wine glass in his hand shattered to the ground with a snap. It's her. She is actually the young lady of the Qin family, Qiningqiu. Xu Xian's heart skipped a beat and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The faces of everyone in the Chen family became uglier, especially Chen Yaoyao. Her legs went weak and she couldn't stand steadily, and sat down directly on the ground. There was extreme fear in her eyes. Just now, she even arrogantly mocked Miss Qin. Since this woman is the daughter of the Qin family, then, that waste. Liu Chunmai wanted to say something but stopped herself. She suddenly felt dizzy and as if the whole world was playing a huge joke on her. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Qiningqiu glanced at the position where Xu Xian and others were standing with her cold eyes, and deep disgust was revealed in her eyes. Then, she smiled playfully at Xu Xian and the others. Why? Are you feeling surprised now? Do you think that a woman like me who only brings wild men from outside to sneak into night banquets to eat and drink secretly is a little different from the Miss Qin in your mind? After Qiningqiu said this, the onlookers showed shock in their eyes, and some even glared at Xu Xian and the Chen family. Who are they? How dare they accuse Miss Qin of eating and drinking for free at her own banquet? What an ungrateful bunch of people. They even dare to provoke Miss Qin. It seems that they really don't want to stay alive in Qianhai City anymore. It seems that the rumors are true. Miss Qin's party today is partly for the purpose of dealing with these blind people. Everyone at the night banquet was talking about it, like thunderclaps, hitting Xu Xian and the Chen family in the face. Good son-in-law, otherwise, let's go quickly. Liu Chuanmei's face turned pale. After she finished speaking, she turned around and wanted to leave, but she was surprised to find that behind them, a group of burly bodyguards had surrounded them. The leader, Yang Jinhu, sneered on his scary face, with murderous intent in his eyes. If there is no order from Miss Qin today, I don't think you guys can leave here for the time being. What's wrong? It's not like you to be so anxious to leave now. Qin Ningqiu curled her lips, and her whole body exuded a powerful aura. After all, the good show prepared for you tonight has not yet begun. When Qin Ningqiu said this, everyone's eyes widened and they were secretly amazed in their hearts. What evil deeds did the Chen family do to make Miss Qin prepare a special evening banquet for them? The faces of everyone in the Chen family turned pale, especially Xu Xian, who felt extremely uneasy. Without paying too much attention to Xu Xian and the Chen family's performance at the moment, Qin Ningqiu adjusted her mood at this moment, and swept her beautiful eyes towards the crowd, and then slowly spoke. During this period of time, after some interesting experiences, I have seen hateful people, and I have also seen excellent people. And the most important purpose of holding this banquet here today is to introduce to you the most outstanding young man in Qianhai City in my opinion. There was an instant uproar in the audience. Who is the most outstanding young man in Qianhai City? I haven't heard of him. But the person who can be valued by Miss Qin must definitely not be an ordinary person, right? However, after hearing Qin Ningqiu's words, Xu Xian and everyone in the Chen family suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. They originally thought that Qin Ningqiu might push Lin Jiang to the forefront. But excellence has nothing to do with a loser like Lin Jiang, right? Noticing the performance of Xu Xian and the others, Qin Ningqiu's smile deepened. Although he is still an ordinary person now, I believe that within a year, his name will be heard throughout Qianhai, and even throughout Daxia. His name is... Qin Ningqiu's tone suddenly lengthened, creating suspense. At the same time, the flashlights on the stage began to flash wildly, making everyone look forward to the young man Miss Qin mentioned. After all, with the strength of the Qin family, even if Miss Qin has her eyes on a waist, he can rise to prosper in an instant. His name is Lin Jiang. Boom! Xu Xian and the Chen family members were speechless as they stood there in shock, mouths agape. Lin Jiang? How is this possible? This must be the same name. Their worldview is collapsing. Lin Jiang, who was once considered a waste by them, has now risen to prominence and become the most outstanding young man in the eyes of Miss Qin. Xu Xian's face turned pale, he grappled with his teeth, and his dazed eyes suddenly showed scarlet bloodshot. No. I must be dreaming. This loser can't possibly be the person Miss Qin is talking about. Chen Shui's face was full of resentment. I have been with this loser for 3 years. How can he deserve the word excellent? It must not be him. Boom! Just when everyone was worried about the candidate Qin Ningqiu mentioned, Qin Ningqiu suddenly called out Lin Jiang's name. The spotlight quickly turned backwards, and Qin Fan, dressed in a suit and tie, walked slowly out from the backstage with steady and vigorous steps. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lin Jiang's handsome face with sharp edges has been deeply engraved in everyone's heart. Taking the microphone from Qin Ningqiu, Lin Jiang glanced at Xu Xian and others in the audience with a smile, and said in a serious tone, "Hello, I am Lin Jiang." Chapter 15, A Strong Slap in the Face. Yun Wan was shocked when he heard this, and his whole body was shaking. This matter was too unbelievable, and Yun Wan regretted jumping in rashly. Wu Nian probably hadn't talked to anyone for a long time, so he talked about his past. There were so many runes to draw, and just Yifeng had to count them. In total, Nilo must have shed 3 bowls of blood. She was lying on the bed filled with Tang Yu scent. When she closed her eyes, she could see his beast-like predatory eyes and his brutal methods in the darkness last night. Although he was indeed not satisfied with some aspects, he felt that it was good enough like this. He-Wan's health would get better, and he didn't force the idea of having a child. She had never had a serious relationship when she was young, and she married Ling Qingyuan at the behest of her parents, and her miserable life began from then on. This group of people are all novices. Boss Yang didn't say anything, and Shen Ning naturally didn't take them to the basement. They were just playing around and could just buy a few cheap ones outside and try their luck. Yun Jinyao felt that it was better not to bring people with low IQs around, as they could easily do something that would harm their teammates. Who would use a paper crane at a critical moment? Could others see it? Only Pei Chiche's loneliness could comfort her and make her feel that the one who suffered the most was not her, Pei Huan. The Aga spear was placed on this stone platform, with the bottom of the handle deeply embedded in the stone base. Lan Fei just felt that maybe she really didn't understand humans very well. Neither human behavior nor their emotional changes were easy to understand. Many human behaviors had no reason or rules to speak of. She still had a lot to learn. Every time there is a counter and a brewing vending machine, so there is no doubt that business will be good. Coincidentally, the man accidentally touched a stone while fiddling with the rocks, revealing a secret room. Out of curiosity, he went down with others to check it out. When he saw several wooden boxes piled up in the secret room, he opened them and found that they were full of silver. He was shocked. I am both types of people, so even if I try hard to hide it, I can't stop the brilliance in the end. What Tang Feng said was indeed correct. The conquest of the King of Conquerors and the arrogance of the King of Heroes collided with fierce sparks, and the night duel between the King of Knights and Chen Jiang also revealed all the mysteries of the whole play. After Yinan and the other two heard the old man's angry tone, they suddenly felt puzzled. Despite this, Yinan still held a glimmer of hope in his heart, perhaps his parents were not dead. Yinan did not react to Zheng Liang's words, because at this time he was thinking about the causes and consequences of all things. In fact, the most important thing is that Li Hao couldn't move at all. His whole body was tied up. Except for his legs, how could he move? Whether it is the rich life force it exudes or the implicit rules contained in it, they are not comparable to the life mark possessed by the elves in the legend. If so, it must be the more advanced thing in the legend, the core of life. The young man in black didn't believe that the boy in front of him, who looked only 17 years old, could be stronger than him. As soon as Wooter opened the thermos lunchbox, he smelled the fragrant aroma and immediately exclaimed in praise. A roar sounded, and the spiritual power in the body swept out. Ling Chen held the long sword in his hand and slashed out. Puff, the black-robed man, spat out a mouthful of blood in the chaotic storm ripples. Most of his black robe was burned by the flames, revealing his charred skin. Lu Man was already in a state of confusion after being hit by the smoke, and she was also very frightened. She was still a little slow to react, staring at Jiang Zhanwei with her big frightened eyes. She was cold and frightened, and her teeth kept chattering. The two of them seemed to have endless topics to talk about. Even Li Ari, who was lying on her side on Lin Yilan's lap, was ignored. What's even more perverted is the last point. This eternal summoner cannot learn normal summoner skills, so how can he summon creatures? There's a 90% chance that the werewolf jade carvings peeled off from the meteorite are true, Gu Yun said when he saw these stone statues. However, for a high school student to be able to drive a car worth more than 500,000 yuan is already considered very good. In the end, the emperor wanted to build up his own power. Chunyu Jia's proposal cleverly avoided military power and did not touch Ji Shi's power, but for the emperor, it was equivalent to possessing military power in disguise, and it was a military power that was completely under his command. How could Wei Ying dare to disobey? He immediately lowered his head and bent his waist to lead the way, but he did not notice the murderous intent in Ji Shi's eyes behind him. Billions of stars were spinning at the same time, carrying endless power, suppressing the blue-eyed man. In the first round of the fight, Rog knew that he had suffered a loss, but he did not intend to change his attacking style. Angel is very beautiful and tall, almost as tall as Hu Haitao. She also has an angelic face, big eyes, and a high nose bridge, just like Anne Hathaway. The overlord in front of them was not afraid of the three of them at all, and at the same time, he enlightened them with one sentence. They seemed to be extremely strong during this period, but this was because they used the power of public opinion and fought on the side of justice. It was not that the Kamikaze Academy was afraid of the three major academies. Even if my family loses their lives, they will protect this sword. Unexpectedly, the old village chief was directly tricked by Mr. Shua's words. This was something he had not expected. No matter what, this area will not be affected by the Phoenix's fire at the moment. Although it is far away, the heat waves of the divine fire are still looming. On the arena, there were patches of dark red that had dried up but could not be washed off. Those were the traces left by those who had climbed onto the arena in the past. "Captain, how are things going over there?" Irene's voice sounded a little anxious, and it was obvious that she was very worried about Yi. After the speech, the guests and reporters attending the appointment ceremony were able to ask Wilson questions. After answering several questions from reporters, Wilson stepped down. Yi was shocked, but did not dodge. In his opinion, since the angel entrusted the spear to him, he would definitely not hurt him again. This might be some kind of special inheritance ceremony. Chapter 16 I Hate You. R. The glass bottle shattered instantly, and countless glass fragments penetrated deeply into Xu Xian's scalp, causing a large amount of blood mist to splash on his head. Lin Jiang's eyes were fierce, his brows were like a sharp sword, exuding an unparalleled sharpness. He looked at Xu Xian's miserable condition, but his expression remained the same. Xu Xian's legs were shaking, his heart was pounding. When the tea trees were about to sprout, he would wait there, looking at the young leaves again, and then find the right time to pick them. Minako installed the phone card, and then countless messages began to pop up on her phone, all from Lu Chuan. The dishes on the table were quite rich, and there were all kinds of wine and drinks. Some time ago, Bai Lingxue saw that the canteen box was quite convenient, and she could often entertain clients or her own internal staff for meals, so she asked the General Affairs Department to order a lot of high-end white wine, red wine, cigarettes, and other kinds of wine and drinks, so that she could entertain clients with dignity. Sue's father and mother's movements became more and more rough, and the sturdy anti-theft chain looked like it would be torn off in the next second. The Queen Mother had not felt the astonished gazes of the crowd for a long time. Feeling the gazes of the crowd at this moment, the Queen Mother was in a good mood and reached out to touch her face, unable to conceal her smile. Presumably, the time and space sword master he met at that time was the same as the five elements sword master, just one of the other's countless thoughts. Bai Lingxue nodded and said, "It's a good thing you reminded me. This situation might really happen. I'll tell my dad right away." After that, she picked up her phone and contacted Bai Weitao. He has discussed with his teammates and decided to accept Mr. Miao as the financial sponsor to finance the operation of their team. Moon Yanan spoke slowly as he casually threw the handkerchief he had used to wipe his hands onto the ground. Only now did he realize how much his decision had hurt Xu Xinyur. He felt so upset that he wanted to hit himself. He had been too arrogant and bullied others. "But I didn't see you at all when I went down into the well. The well is so small. Where would you two be?" "I was calling Miss Ling in the well, but there was no one there," Han Li interrupted. And Yang silently looked at Master Xuani's expression, but his eyes had returned to their former clarity, and nothing could be seen. Therefore, it is understandable that the young man came here to hide and seek protection when he was desperate. He then took back the Heavenly 5-Decay flag. In order to activate this flag, he also consumed a lot of his original energy. "I don't want to eat anything. Just eat as usual," Xu Xinyuor said calmly. Her eyes were all on Xu Nuo. The county lieutenant at the side quickly replied, and it was obvious that he had already inquired about everything before coming. Because the heaven is ruled by the Emperor of Heaven, who controls everything and eliminates everything, if the demons invade, they will be expelled or even killed. Over time, a deep-rooted conflict has arisen between the heaven and the free heaven. Although the Queen Mother was called the Queen in the current dynasty, she was treated with the same courtesy as the Emperor in all matters, and no one dared to raise any objections. Anyone who dared to speak out of etiquette would die under the sword of the Black Armor Guards. Chen Xiaorong's mother greeted some people awkwardly. Many people took out their mobile phones to take pictures of Chen Xiaorong and followed Chen Xiaorong all their way back to his grandmother's house. "Let's go. Just find someone to inform and we'll go directly to meet Lin Jiang." Xiong Gangqian spoke to Siming, who was a little confused. Even a figure like Fozi couldn't escape and died outside, which shows how powerful the enemy was. "I said, if you are gone, what will happen if Chichi is bullied in the future? If she is hurt by her boyfriend, who will support her?" Seeing this scene in front of me, I couldn't help but be stunned. I raised my head slightly and looked at the person who came. I saw that there was a cold look on his face and there was a hint of murderousness in his eyes when he looked at me. To be honest, I am a little afraid to meet Hu Xiaoyan now, because in my opinion, I am more or less sorry for this girl Hu Xiaoyan. After all, this girl treats me sincerely, has done a lot for me, made a lot of sacrifices for me, and also gave me her precious first time. Chapter 17. It's not easy. Mr. Chen, I think there is nothing more to say between me and your Chen family. Lin Jiang's tone was very calm, with a hint of coldness. Please take care of yourself in the days ahead, Mr. Chen. Having said this, Lin Jiang did not say anything more, but left the banquet directly with Qi Ningqiu. And this? Hua Qian nodded. The world is so big that, except for cultivators, if a mortal wants to travel from Dongju to Fengkai Kingdom in Nanju, it will probably take several years. At the same time, she put on a snow-white veil to cover her extremely delicate face to avoid any trouble. The moment Hua Qian felt this aura, the Qinya ruler in his body became restless. All the cultivators around him, including the Tumuyu, were frightened by this aura and did not dare to move. Zhu Qian and the others were completely silent. They had never expected that Xie Feihan had so many painful memories buried in his heart. His background had caused his pain. He should have been a child of destiny, but because he could not practice, his illustrious background had become a mountain that weighed on his head. Everyone in the world knows that Zhu killed Ging Chunyan, the left protector of the Pure Land sect. The bloodless sword was Ging Chunyan's weapon and has been used by Zhu ever since. This was a rare event. After all, Yangcheng was still the territory of the Southern Heaven Alliance. Moreover, in such an important city, the nearby sects all sent true return realm cultivators to guard the city. The Southern Heaven Alliance had set a rule that any cultivators entering a city within the Southern Heaven Alliance's sphere of influence were not allowed to fight in the streets. Qi Mingyu looked at his master's departing figure, and his heart, which had long been as calm as dead water, now began to ripple a little. How insolent of a shoveler! Groot looked at Chidao with contempt and dodged it easily. With a low shout, an aura that was unrivaled in both ancient and modern times spread out. Wherever it passed, time and space collapsed and laws were annihilated. Thousands of sword beams burst out from the demon god's blade, the mysteries of martial arts flowed and rippled, and then condensed into a phantom of a demon god's body that was 1,000 feet long. So that's how it is. Lord, don't worry, as long as there are enough materials, these 10 ships can be completed in 2 or 3 months, said Old Man Chen. Wang Shuo and the others did not dare to delay. You supported me and I supported you, and we walked away together. When leaving, Wang Shuo gratefully said, if we are destined to meet again in the future, I will repay you with my life. He did not act pretentiously and gradually disappeared. You can take this back with you, so you can save time. How about your dowry? If it's short, you can ask me to make up for it. I still say that I don't want my first time to be so shabby. Sulejua looked at Han Jiangxue and said seriously. Unfortunately, the male protagonist at that time was only concerned about his love and didn't care about other things at all. Zhang Jie is just a vassal now, and we can't deal with him. If the Han people are unified, you can imagine what will happen. The boy was stunned, as if he had not expected him to ask such a question. The corners of his mouth twitched twice, and he was unable to speak. The spending value in the upper right corner is still 3.2 billion. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be enough to unlock 2 big budget movies. Seeing that everyone was gathering here, UWAN even wondered, could it be that they were frightened by what Fang Ren said about the trial? So they all ran to the sword manual area, hoping to use the power attack type of swordsmanship to strengthen their strength and self-protection. These 2 idiots ran around happily, leaving only 2 colorful tails for UWAN, and then disappeared together. I didn't expect Han Jiangxue to dress herself up like this. She is really so free. She just got married, and Sulejua just left, and she put on men's clothes. But such high spirits could not last long. The mountain range with an average altitude of over 4,000 meters was like a hand crossing the world, blocking them before their destination. Chapter 18. Accident at the construction site. This lady was really amiable. Liu Maibao happily answered all the questions and took out a pair of shoe-uppers. On this morning, a big news broke out in Jie Country, which is across the sea from Zhonghai City. The Jie Country stock market was in turmoil, various large stocks fell rapidly, and their ups and downs were dizzying. The entire Jie Country stock market was close to collapse. Before Xiao Yinjian had time to fully appreciate the feeling of being struck by thunder, or how strong the familiar feeling of increasing his power was, the intense pain almost made him faint, and a sweet feeling came over him, and he almost vomited blood. As heavy troops entered the city, the people who had originally retreated gathered again, and rushed forward in a mighty force, shouting slogans, holding big character posters, and holding banners with Chinese characters on them, to meet the soldiers coming from all directions. Seeing Zhang Qi blushing and unable to say a word, she smiled. Compared with Ji Yuzhen, the prodigal son, Ji Yuming seemed to be a responsible and capable man. The two were cousins, and they were really a perfect match. Normally, he was calm and composed. No matter how big the problems or difficulties were, he could think and solve them with extremely rational thinking. But this time it was different. His heart was in turmoil. After stretching his body, Shukai took out the cloth talisman from the cloth bag, placed it flat on the ground, then slowly raised his head and looked at the corpse. In one hand he held a giant sword that was 2 meters long. The blade flashed with the light of the soul. The noisy sound of the soul came from the sword and wandered back and forth in Wang Wei's ears. Looking at these hungry people with tattered clothes, frostbite all over their bodies and skinny limbs, everyone walked along with a heavy heart. It's just that the story always stops halfway through. However, it's not because Tang Ju deliberately left suspense, but because Tang Wan didn't seem to like the stories her father told her very much, and she would always burst into tears suddenly. When Liu Wenwen mustered up the courage to take off her clothes and start taking a bath, a long-awaited ray of obscene mental power decisively entered the bathtub and slid over her delicate and flawless body. The driver parked the car by the roadside, and the bodyguard rushed out of the car, went around to the back of the car, opened the door, and tried his best to separate the two people who were hugging each other. Su Weigua did not adopt him, but simply changed his surname. In other aspects, he was training him to be a bodyguard foreman. Har ha har ha, I, Lucifer, am back. That's right, Lucifer is back. Judging from the monsters around, this should be the territory of the demons, but which part of the Wuling continent is it? However, even so, Sister Hong was still on high alert, ready to rush forward if he showed any sign of misbehavior. All their major forces were shocked. It was not that they had never seen floating residences before. Some powerful people's residences were built in the air. However, they had never heard of such a large floating island. Suddenly, all their major forces could not remain calm and rushed to the place where the island was flying. After about half a day, Bai Yundao finally arrived at the desolate starry sea outside the ancient space of demon fairies. That makes sense. We must not let my brother-in-law take advantage of us so easily. I have to talk to Sister Wen, lest he have the opportunity to have 3 girls at the same time. Fang Ting nodded, speaking with a common hatred. Actually, there was nothing wrong with what they said. After all, they were the best among the people in the world of cultivation, so their talent and aptitude were naturally no worse than theirs. Who is Mendalu? This was the first time Liu Ni heard of this name. She knew it was a nickname. As soon as I arrived at the door, I saw Liu Ying, Ganzi, and Zhang Xinyu with their heads down. Opposite them was the old man at the north gate who had just stopped me. The pilgrims in the pagoda rushed towards the narrow staircase like a raging sea. The surging crowd, the cries, the shouts, the sounds of clothes being torn and shredded smashed the pure Buddhist gate to pieces. Liu Xia didn't say anything for a long time. There was an abnormal blush on his cheeks and his watery eyes stared straight ahead. It turned out that Chen Bing was originally a contracted artist of this company, but later left the company. However, the contract he was owed at that time had not yet expired. It expired this month, so he came here specifically to terminate the contract. You won't forget who broke my leg, will you? If you keep talking, I'll be moved. I'm the victim, okay? I avoided him and he pulled my hand. Luo Huer was silent for a while and then left. I hurriedly followed him. The once glorious Sage Academy was also submerged in the tide of the times and almost disappeared. After going down, they found that those above were worrying too much. There were too thick spiritual and demonic energies surging below. The suppressed demons and monsters probably thought that a large army was coming to encircle them, and had already retreated. The contempt in Sai's words was very obvious. Yang Feng jumped up and grasped the spear tightly in his hand. The light yellow mysterious power spread throughout the spear, and then he shot at Sai. The entire lower body disappeared, leaving only one arm, with white bones exposed everywhere, and strong internal organs beating inside the skeleton. On the unrecognizable skull face, one eye had been burned blind, and the other eye was looking at the gasping Denise, full of anger. Let's go back to the Nuyen tribe. Maybe there is a way to heal there. Nuyen Jana said. Their original destination was the Nuyen tribe, but the training slowed down the journey. Nuyen Jana said this to mean that they should give up the training and focus on the journey. Chapter 19, Dangers in the Wall. In a flash of lightning, everyone saw a figure flash by like a ghost. Bang! The wall that was so solid a second ago now became the biggest threat. Seeing dozens of workers under the wall about to be crushed into meat paste, everyone was horrified, but soon, their eyes turned into shock, full of disbelief. Lin Jiang was seen holding up the heavy wall with his own body. At this moment, his hands. She cried very forbearingly, and tried to wipe away her tears with her hands before the man noticed her tears. In the end, she couldn't resist the strongest struggle in her heart, and Sulinger held Mo Sanyan's hand and tightened it silently. Now he no longer had that mocking and impatient look towards her, but the man's slightly frowning brows and silence were a clear indication of his displeasure. At this moment Chen Qi also made a move, but he still sat there without moving. He just stretched out his arm and gently pinched Du Dao's dagger with 2 fingers. Chu Feng, who was cultivating in the forbidden area of Wufu, knew nothing about the outside world. He only saw the most essential star points of spiritual energy, which actually flowed into Chu Feng's Baihui acupoint like hundreds of birds flying into the forest. The Lord of the Air Domain's protective energy at the peak of the sovereign realm was pierced through like thin paper. The wind energy in his body became chaotic in an instant and rushed towards his heart. The guards are really clumsy and are not as useful as their maid. But why hasn't that girl come back yet? Was she stopped by the prince to ask about my condition? She was very good at exaggerating her status and importance. She shook her head and didn't care. On the contrary, Liu Xiao and Yu Yu sat next to them and couldn't get a word in. They could only stand by and laugh from time to time. She just wanted to know whether Heli and Chun's so-called reasons were more important, or their feelings that had gone through life and death were more important. Now Fangshan can only be sure of one thing, at least today, he can't get any useful information about Yang Jin from Dou Lijuan. In a short period of time, the forbidden power of space in the space layer was not suppressed and became violent. Luo Feng swung his knife forward casually, and a space crack appeared, and he immediately returned to normal time and space. The reason why the war broke out only in the eastern region is that this is the territory of the vassal king, and the other is that the border in the western region is also tense. A large number of mixed-race refugees from the Fanji territory have poured in, and many troops are currently guarding it. Jiao Yang was so angry that if she hadn't been afraid that her voice would be transmitted to the phone, she might have loudly questioned Fangshan. The more powerful the opponent, the more powerful force can be stimulated, and as the fight continues, the power will only become stronger and stronger. It is a strange way to increase strength as the battle goes on. In the next period of time, he would go all out to repair the Dao Seal. If the Dao Seal failed, Luo Feng himself would not go to Fengshan City. In his hometown world, he was not afraid of any killers. The princess was stunned for a moment. She turned her head slightly and blinked, as if wondering where she had seen Yin Tingxue before. Leon sat in the iron cage, one hand on his knee. He looked up at the person who came, although he had been imprisoned for a long time, but his muscles were still full and tight. His hair was disheveled, but from between his hair he looked at the person with eyes like a lion. Pei Fei didn't pay much attention to it. Her attention was all on the paper house placed on the other side. Yes, it was the kind that was burned for the dead. She always spoke in a serious manner, but Pei Fei clearly noticed that she had secretly eaten puffs and tasted milk tea. Unexpectedly, this serious old lady was quite cute. She didn't expose her, but she always left some food behind when she left. Anyway, it was gone the next day and no one knew where it went. Chapter 20, Try to Curse Again. He should be dead. We don't know what that thing that suddenly appeared is. Fang Ju said. Their destination is Kundu in Wuhuar district of Jinchen. This place is full of bars, but it is also very chaotic. It is also where many social people gather. The 3 top martial artists blocked the cuts on their throats with their hands, but the blood still gushed out. They made gurgling sounds in their throats and it was extremely difficult to breathe. In just a moment, the 3 killers died. A day and a half passed in the blink of an eye, and Xiao Kuang finally arrived at the blood-killing tower ahead of time. What shocked Xiao Kuang along their way was that he found that the crazy beast tide was gradually surrounding the blood-killing tower. We are divided into 2 teams. One team came here, and the other team, led by the chief, went to another place that no one knows. So we will be waiting for you here. Duan Xiu said. Xiao Kuang grabbed the purple-black light and looked at the purple-black sword in his hand, his heart filled with shock. Putting down his phone, Ling Yu took a bun and ate it. It was full of golden crab roe and was indeed delicious. However, Yi Chen did not suffer any injuries, as if the lightning beast claw that was powerful enough to tear everything apart did not exist at all. Don't be proud, keep practicing and fully comprehend the sword technique. Ling Yu said. It is not so easy to practice that set of sword techniques. The isolation zone is 2 meters wide and is black. I don't know what it is separated by. Soon after Liu Yu was sent to the bridal chamber, Zhuge Gui ordered his servants to start the feast. The gongs and drums were beaten again, and everyone took their seats. If you enter the holy realm, you will combine the 3 skills of stealing, robbing and robbery into one. At this time, it is possible to change the laws of heaven and earth, steal the sky and change the day, and transform the universe. Everyone couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This was just a simple start. There is still a long way to go in the future. A great aspiration is not a simple vow, it is a promise made by a practitioner to do something that is extremely difficult and almost impossible to accomplish. If one does not fulfill this aspiration, one will be trapped in this vow forever. Even if one's cultivation level is high, one will not be able to enter the holy realm, because this aspiration will become an obstacle to one's heart. When the old rogue heard this, his expression became a little strange. If his guess was correct, the strange plant in Muse's mouth should be the corn fruit he saw in the Warcraft paradise. Blood escape, the blood shadow thief's stealth skill. The movement speed is reduced by 80% during the blood escape effect. The effect disappears when encountering a stealth breaking skill. The effect disappears when attacked. Used in the blood realm, you can freely reach a designated location in the blood realm. Noticing that something was wrong with Tang Feng, Master Yang fell from the air, and with a bright white light, he pressed his palm on Tang Feng's forehead, and streams of righteousness rushed into Tang Feng's body. This ointment is called Jinggu ointment, and it was accidentally made by Chen Kongxiang. Although Chen Kongxiang told Liu Ruoming that he was an alchemist, he was actually not even as good as that half-baked apprentice. A real alchemist could make elixirs that could bring the dead back to life, but he only made potions and ointments. Mrs. Wu saw that both Jiu Rufeng and Ling Feng looked a little strange, so she stepped forward and asked, "Master, is there something wrong?" As she spoke, Mrs. Wu walked forward, came to Ling Feng's side, and cast her eyes on the piece of paper in Ling Feng's hand. Liu Ruoming's beautiful eyes flashed for a moment. She could feel that the dark purple in the bottle had a horrible toxicity. Upon hearing the good news, all the players from the Wu faction couldn't help but laugh, and those NPCs who could still speak also started to make a noise, saying all kinds of trash talk to mock the enemies. In 2002, information about social networks was relatively limited, especially for the world internet market that had just experienced the internet bubble. Enki's eyebrows had already been raised, and when she saw that Ndawei was still talking nonsense, she became so angry that she cursed at him. Tang Jingyun put down the fruit in his hand, stood up from the chair, and walked calmly to the bedside. Just as Sun Shaozong had expected, the Jesheli tribe suffered heavy losses in the battle a month ago. Even the tribe leader Jahili's younger brother, Harasul, died near Xingchen. In fact, Takarki didn't feel that he had used much force, but Mitsuher was in so much pain that she broke out in cold sweats, which made him feel heartbroken. Especially afterwards, Mitsuher gritted her teeth and said nothing, which made Takarki feel even more heartbroken. However, Takarki could only turn a blind eye. But a short pain is worse than a long one, and for Mitsuher's sake, he could only harden his heart and continue. Bai Yunfei rarely sees his sister being so naughty. To be honest, he quite likes to see his sister being so lively and cute. After Luo Yun finished speaking, he took out a suitcase from the cabinet beside him. Wait, why does this suitcase have a combination lock? However, Alia has not recovered her full strength after all. In order to achieve this, Rococo must be very close to Yekar and his NPC army. In the battlefield of the faction war, in order to achieve this, it is obviously necessary to cross the player camp in front of the NPC army. A gleam of light flashed in Liu Chuan's eyes. Could it be the soul that was different from the mysterious power of the martial spirit? Dao Xian touched his chin and thought, forget it, instead of staying at home and suffering discrimination, he might as well go find Tong Tong. On the other hand, Jilan Tai, who was circling around Arshing, was currently digging a hole in the sand with Arshing. So I fell into deep worry. This man doesn't stay in a 5-star hotel but chooses to stay here. Could it be that he really likes her? But why did he refuse when she said she wanted to give it a try? HMPH, don't I know what kind of person you are? The things people want must be in your hands. You can fool others, but you can never fool me. So, just confess. It's nothing and there's no shame. Or do you not believe that I have this ability? Lu Ding said lightly. The fireworks he brought were the kind of long tube fireworks that can be held in the hand. Each of them took one, lit the fuse with a lighter, and reached out of the window at the same time in tacit understanding. Although it has terminated the contract with its previous owner, it still misses her very much and hopes that she is well. Fire Dragon Sword. Damn. I didn't expect that the Fire Dragon Sword, one of the top 10 weapons in the Wuling continent, was actually in Hui Yinqian's hands. This battle was really exciting and worth it. It's really worth coming to this endless South China Sea. Mo Xiongbar sighed again. Chapter 21 Lord Fire. Master Tiger. Looking at Yang Jinhu who appeared in front of them, Chen Shui's expression suddenly changed drastically, and her lips trembled. Why are you here? A trace of fear flashed across Liu Chuanmei's face, and then she silently took a step back, looking warily at Yang Jinhu, who was full of murderous intent. Lin Jiang frowned. The joy of reuniting with Lin Longxian made him temporarily forget what happened before, but now, he remembered everything. Lu Jian quickly stopped his move. Ji Yuzhen touched the door and felt a stream of true energy like a silk net that tightly wrapped the meditation room. Lan Yizer was obviously not in good spirits. He closed his eyes slightly, took a step forward and smiled slightly. Suddenly, all the cultivators in this ancient world felt the power of the 5 elements between heaven and earth, as if there was a monarch or emperor in control. She withdrew her sinister gaze from the villa, and her beautiful fingers slid across the keyboard, taking a few screenshots from the video and blurring them intentionally. However, Barcelona has now focused on studying Li Qingshan's abilities and characteristics. In the midfield, Li Qingshan's only choice is to pass the ball to his teammates. He himself does not have the ability to dribble forward and score. Moreover, he is no longer the demigod who could dominate the world. After reactivating his spiritual power will increase exponentially. When he was about to pack up and go with Li Tai to the other side of the training base for the special training given to him by the team, Li Tai stopped him at the door. Almer sat at home, staring at the TV screen, which was playing an advertisement. The upper right corner of the screen reminded the audience, there are still 60 seconds to return to the lottery site. The TV remote control that Almer held tightly in her hand was a little wet from the sweat on her palm, but she didn't notice it at all. According to his detection, this divine chain can really ignore the restrictions of the cave and drag the entire cave to another space. After finishing this shameless speech, Higgs sat up straight, looked at the young people in front of him with a sharp gaze, and waited for them to make a choice. This kind of thing, where one would directly hand over his life to the other party while not having any power to resist at all, is definitely not Fang Zhe's style. There is no way out for Tsangmin Star, unless one reaches the Mahayana stage or the realm of a wandering immortal and relies on the ability of star movement to leave the planet. It has lost contact with the outside world and has become a closed planet, no longer able to communicate with other cultivation planets. So in order to protect this confidential information, Iruker had to use a higher illusion skill than Yakumo's to temporarily blind Yakumo's mental tentacles in this regard. The 2 helmet-like armors on the upper and lower parts of the 3 tails head closed together, blocking Iruker's water jutsu. This made Fang Zhe a little doubtful about how long this passage was. After having the question in his mind, he asked Elder Feng. The white bone demons will control the wings, and he flapped them lightly. His soul suddenly shot out like a sharp arrow, and when it stopped, it was already 30,000 miles away. Zhang Chen knew that it was impossible for Tencent to give up the QQ domain name, but judging from the current situation, it seemed that no one would offer a higher price than Tencent, so the other party did not have to worry about the domain name being snatched away by others. They probably wanted to compete with Zhang Chen in patience. Whoever ran out of patience first would be at a disadvantage. Lu Shui gave the instruction cutely, then she lay on the ground and curled up into a ball. There was a pink shadow under her body. This color represented warmth, and it was like a good big bed. It's really troublesome. Tian Yue sighed and muttered, then stretched out his hand and pulled out the demon-subduing rod, which was shining with silver light and exuding a chilling aura. Chapter 22 True and False Scrolls. Ultra-telekinesis quietly cut off the power supply of the strange machine. Under the incredulous eyes of Kigo Masaki, the 3rd generation of Gazette was destroyed by a crossbeam of light pretended by Seost. The ability to feel fear, to measure one's own weight, and to bow one's head are all good genes formed in humans during the process of evolution. If you get lost in the forest, it will be even more of a loss. It will be extremely difficult to get out of this huge forest within 10 days if you can't find your way. Lush green trees have been transplanted on both sides of the road leading to the villa. With the existence of the spirit gathering array, these trees, which are dozens or 300 years old, are growing better than before. Egg was looking forward to this day, but he was greeted by another unexpected guest. A servant from the Red Keep suddenly came to the office and claimed that King Robert needed a real man of the Night's Watch who had sworn an oath to accompany the army. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Asuka felt a heat rising on his face. He felt ashamed and embarrassed. Without waiting for thought or response, he hung up the phone. However, due to his age, he is unable to fully exert the power of possession and cannot completely devour the soul of the national teacher. If the opposite sex with a foot fetish happens to come across such a charming scene, their minds will surely be captivated and unable to extricate themselves. 10 minutes later, the bell rang and after Great Magician Hill left the classroom, some students also left the classroom one after another. However, the vast majority of students were talking loudly, discussing what had just happened with the alien madman. However, Hua Qinjue knew how terrifying Su Chen was, so when facing Su Chen, he would unnaturally reveal an expression of fear. Looking at Xia Baihe's face that looked more and more like her, Xie Zhengguo couldn't help but be stunned. He was struggling with whether he should tell Xia Baihe about her mother or not. According to the two people who blocked Manquan's way, the old couple has already set off for Kyoto. Judging from the time, they will not be far from finding the door. The 9 halls of Jiuxiao Fairy Palace are all located in the center of the planet, covering an area of 180,000 kilometers and radiating from this center. Of course, the squeaking sound of their beds had spread throughout the entire studio. After all, their room was not very soundproof. The people living in the studio immediately started playing the game without thinking, because only in the game would they not hear the embarrassing sound. You have to know that he is the leader of a sect and one of the few people standing at the top of the pyramid of Huangju. He has never seen a young man who can face him without any nervousness. On the sofa, there was a figure lying sideways, wearing a red kimono, gently shaking a red wine glass in his hand, with an expression on his face that everything was under control. He was impulsive when he said, "blood-melting spirit pill," but there was no one around, so he was careless. Of course, he ignored Chang Zunyu, who was always timid and taciturn. "Who are you? Why are you killing my men?" All the cannon fodders were killed in the blink of an eye by Liu Ding. How could Luo Ping not be shocked? Anyway, it wasn't the first day like this, so she didn't take it seriously. Later, she treated the tinnitus in her right ear as an old friend who came to visit from time to time, and she got used to it. "You are newly married, but he really doesn't show you any mercy. You should go home and be with your wife now," I said lightly. Jiang Yisheng really used Feng Lingdu to the extreme. "We just got married yesterday, and today I asked him to lead his troops and follow me. Yes, I did it all." Without hesitation, Su Shiyu looked at her coldly with the cruelest sneer on her lips. Without thinking, Su Liuying raised her hand and slapped Rong Qing hard in the face. The force was so great that the unsuspecting Rong Qing fell to the ground. The fat man didn't answer me, but stood on tiptoe to look in the direction of the bus. But before I left, I saw that the bus he was going to take had just left, so it would definitely not come for a while. Seeing the fat man's anxious look, I stopped a taxi. I gritted my teeth and endured wave after wave of pain. Du Yue said it might be a little painful, but it would be fine after the pain passed. It's a very special song title. Song titles with repeated characters are indeed rare. And looking at the title, Han Yuyan couldn't even guess the style of the song. So, after thinking it over, Su Liuying didn't want to involve Princess Linglan in this war without the smoke of gunpowder before having solid evidence. "So now that I am safe and free, is it because Lu Yu agreed to the marriage that Emperor Huacheng let me go?" Being praised by Yang Xian, Chen Man smiled embarrassedly. Just as she was about to reply, she heard Cece's voice from inside. 2 demigod-level thought objects, and the black walnut true god thought object. I have to wash these things away quietly, and that will be fine. A clean and tidy road looks comfortable to everyone, but no one likes a dirty, messy and smelly road. Forget it. I can't explain Sister Fuqin's matter in just one night. I'll go ask Sister Xiaomai tomorrow. What appeared on the screen was the image of the open ground. The picture was extremely clear, as if one had seen it with one's own eyes. Shenwan walked to the desk, pulled out a chair and sat on it, picked up the phone on the desk and called Chen Lingwei, wanting Chen Lingwei to handle the matter, but no one answered the phone. Before coming, Yixing and Long Huang also made a plan. The plan was very simple, which was to annihilate the entire clan. At this time, many customers in the store gathered around and asked to shake hands with Yi Qian, hoping to try their luck. It was simply too funny. Pei's son, the old monster, was shocked. The content of the chapter is being restored, please visit again later. Rani Han's words were very sincere, and his eyes, like stars, were filled with anxiety and uneasiness. Instead, these biochemical beasts of various shapes rushed towards the engineering vehicle in waves. If it were not a special engineering vehicle for clearing the way, the flesh and blood bodies that had plunged into the tires and bearings would have stuck the vehicle. If everyone was like him, then the ancient spiritual formation would be of little use, and the profession of spiritual formation master would not be so popular among sects. Wei Jia was shocked. Yudi was setting a trap for him. Thoughts raced through his mind, and he understood where the strange feeling in his heart came from. But luck is luck, but isn't one's own strength unimportant? If one does not have enough strength and courage, who can or dares to do this? Chapter 23, Another Universe. As soon as Lin Jiang finished speaking, the onlookers immediately made sounds of contempt. Zhao Xuanxuan slammed the table angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? A fake painting is not even worth 3 million, but you are still saying it is worth 6 million. I think you are in the same group with Marsan. You are obviously hired by him. I finally understand. This store can be so successful in selling fake goods because of people like you who deceive consumers. Of course, this has its limits. It's impossible for him to go out and be on par with the Blood Saint right now, but he won't be killed instantly as soon as he makes a move either. If it is true, then studying it carefully may be of great benefit to both her and Yin Qingchen in the future. Meng Yong froze suddenly, his bloodshot eyes filled with an irrepressible trance and turmoil. He gently picked her up, stomped his feet, and jumped out of the pit by stepping on the wall. What? They finally finished. Shui Yuhan, who was leaning on Yang Baishua's shoulder, woke up. When everyone saw that Zhao Liang was trying to sow discord, they immediately shut up and blamed themselves, wondering if they should give the new god of Bacchus some face in the future. Fortunately, the new god of Bacchus was a broad-minded person. You, a muddy servant, are sensible. Otherwise, I would have twisted off your muddy servant's ears and used them as snacks. Shangguan Yunyan loosened the hand that was grabbing the innkeeper's ear, patted her own hands and said, I saw that Han Yuan was still standing on the stone platform. He seemed to have suffered some minor injuries, his face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. Fang Aoqin looked at the judge, and although his face looked calm, his voice showed that he was a little excited at this moment. I swallowed. The clouds in the sky were very thick and it looked like it was going to rain. Suddenly, a cool breeze blew by, and I felt the hairs on my back stand up. Seeing that the situation was not good, Chushi bent her knee and pressed it against the gangster's chest before Chen Gan could beat him up. A large part of these masters were independent cultivators. After hearing the news, these independent cultivators rushed to the important town of Beitzan. His current level is far from reaching the upper limit of LV50. Even if he raises his soul level to silver, he will only have the strength of steel level. She used to patronize his business every now and then, but now she hasn't eaten there for a long time since she graduated from high school. This applause was for Liu Yu and also for themselves. They had experienced the disaster together and there was no need to express it in too many words. Even though they were still in adversity, they could feel each other's joy of surviving the disaster. Kai Yanhong was also the first person to reveal to him the revival of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The two of them helped each other for a period of time, each taking what they needed. The jade toad chi eating method he practiced was also inextricably linked to Kai Yanhong's lineage. Lin Yang gritted her teeth. No matter whether it was the Liu Yu she knew before or not, she decided to risk herself. The only thing she could use now was her body. After all, she was the grandmother of the general's mansion, and she had an overwhelming aura, so Xu Jiala didn't dare to resist at all. Chen Feng drove to the old church in the southeast. The church had been abandoned for many years and was surrounded by weeds, making it look particularly desolate. He pushed open the heavy wooden door and walked into the church. The dilapidated building looked even more eerie in the dim light, and every step echoed with a low echo. In the Xuanguang realm, the Xuanguang seed is condensed, which has mysterious abilities. When fighting, the Xuanguang seed is the core, and the Xuanguang is dispatched to perform martial arts and attack. In an instant, countless people's hearts skipped a beat. The 9 dragons pulling coffin was so sacred and mysterious, who was buried inside it? My past? This life and the next? Jiao Chong was really in a dilemma. The memory of Jiao Chong in this life was already confused. Although the memory of his previous life was clear, it was a different world from this one. Everything was incredible to the people of this world. Chapter 24 Encounter. The Instruction Institute, the most powerful and mysterious black organization in the Ordisia Empire, was destroyed in an inexplicable explosion. No one knew what happened, but only knew that the sudden disaster reduced the entire organization to ruins. After a while, there was a response from the microphone. It seemed that Aruri had just woken up, and his voice was unusually confused. Pei Ye sighed, stopped, and continued to look elsewhere, not paying attention to the road ahead. When she suddenly noticed a figure rushing towards her and wanted to move out of the way, it was too late. Ying Yan stood there in a daze, thinking that Fu Qingshan would give him some advice, but unexpectedly, Fu Qingshan just left after saying this, and even took away half of the feather he had grown. These officials were the ones who had previously unanimously condemned Lin Yu's identity, and they were also the ones who were ordered by the emperor to be demoted to commoners during the morning court session that day. This morning, everyone in Wulong Taoist Temple was waiting at the mountain gate square for Ji Ranzi to announce how to deal with the Jin people surrounding the mountain. Ji Miaozi looked at the people in front of him, these Taoists, Taoist children, and Daniu and Yang Zixing who were devoted to practicing Taoism. The lives of these people were closely linked to his decision at this time, and this decision must be made with great caution. While Su Jing was in doubt, a new piece of news suddenly came. Princess Qingshan, who was fighting overseas, raised an army to defend the king. Princess Qingshan led a fleet and millions of troops back from the vast ocean, vowing to use Su Jing's head to commemorate the many dead in the royal family. This is. When they saw the blue ocean, the thick blue light flashing around the blue ocean, and heard the voice of the blue shadow coming from the blue ocean, the expressions on the faces of the 3 saints of Mingcheng were stunned for a moment. In the previous battle, on the deck, the puppets performed well, much better than the magic puppets. But the deck was always shaking, and the requirements for the formation were not high. On the land wall, the puppets' ability to coordinate the formation and their response to detailed commands had to be tested. Yu Yujia and Wu Fei are not alike at all. The way they talk and act is completely different. If Tian Jia were to choose, Yu Yujia would naturally be more like a qualified elder brother, who would indulge his younger brother but also give him necessary discipline. Har har, I'm really sorry, I really have to go this time. After thinking about it, I can only tell you. Who makes me trust you so much? Juechen Yuzi changed his usual cold expression, as if he had let down all his guard, and smiled again. Han Yuqiao became very anxious when he heard this, and Yifan Luo in the room stopped what he was doing immediately after hearing the noise. As for the nearby demon guards, they ran over in a flash. The feeling of being like a fresh debutant, watching the surgical master perform the operation, became more obvious. Sophie was originally in a bad mood. This guy had such a superhuman level, but he was unwilling to help her. Moreover, he listened to her so much before, but now he was like this after doing that thing with her. Sophie couldn't help feeling guilty and thought that Liu Yang was killing the donkey after it has done its work. After seeing Yang Xiuzhu nakedly driving San Lazy out of the house, Li Jin held back his laughter and left Yang Xiuzhu's place and went straight back to Xiao Yuru's house. That demon was originally a big demon that escaped from the demon refining lake. Thousands of years ago, this demon had wreaked havoc in the Zhenwu realm and made a great name for itself. It became one of the big demons with a name in the Zhenwu realm. People called him the big demon Ka Suo, and he once frightened people all over the world. She and her colleagues from the municipal bureau had been busy all night today, and found a large amount of poison, cash, and various crimes committed by Zhang Donglai in the scrap car yard. This time it was really a great harvest. All the comrades in the municipal bureau praised her and highly praised her courage and ability. What's going on? Is it because the people in your kitchen are lazy? The eldest lady asked sternly. Yes, he seems to be a little drunk. Our waiter just sent him back to the room. Don't worry, no one dares to take advantage of him here. Bai Jinyan said loudly. Xiejun was stunned. She had never thought that after Wei Dingqian killed Ling Hulingguan, he would actually attack again. How could Xie have thought that the destruction of Baiyu sect made Wei Dingtian completely go berserk, and the murderous intent in his heart could destroy everything? Wei Dingtian turned into a generation of killing god. Whoever dared to stop Wei Dingtian's revenge, Wei Dingtian would kill him with a sword. Seeing that Yang Yuluo did not answer him, Lu Yun felt a little strange. He looked up and glanced at Yang Yuluo secretly, only to find that Yang Yuluo was staring at Lin Qianxian behind him. On this day, countless pieces of scrap copper and iron were salvaged, and countless strange stones were picked up. Every scientist searched for a lot of things in the sea. Some were holding scrap copper and iron, while others were holding broken stones and branches. They were all on guard against others coming to rob their garbage dumps, and they all dreamed of fishing out some fairy treasure from the outside world. It was obvious that the red flame jackal had the upper hand in this fight. The flames burned, and the stone armor on the surface of the silver-armored rhino's body also transferred the high temperature to its skin and flesh. The stone armor was like a branding iron, and the silver-armored rhino gritted its teeth and endured it, and finally slammed heavily into the stone wall. The flames were hit a lot in the process. His mood was different every time. This time he came to kill someone, or to repay Su Jinlin of the Su family for his kindness. Once this request was made, Yi Bai had nothing to worry about. He would go directly to Lu's state to see the guardian pair that his master had once led. Xiao Wuxia sighed deeply and said, "Oh, all right. I accept my fate as I have fallen into your hands today." Then he walked towards the leader. "I have a way." Xiaohang looked towards the distant west, where there was a strange-shaped mountain standing in the night. Fires were burning between the stone caves, reflecting the color of the molten lava. The Tongshan monkey was not feeling well either. The bloodthirsty violent bear's final blow to his chest had left a dent in it. I don't know how many of his sternums were shattered, and his mouth was constantly spitting out large amounts of bright red internal organs. Then, he took out a transparent jade bottle containing the spiritual spring jade dew and threw it to Zhu Yin with a determined heart. Xiong Jian raised his head and looked at Xiong Huaiji, then stuffed a meatball on the iron plate into his mouth. Chapter 25 Roadblock. The hot water in the kettle did splash a little on Liu Shana's arm, but fortunately it was not too serious. The doctors in the infirmary cleaned the wound with alcohol and applied some ointment, leaving no scars. They also told Liu Shana to be careful not to get burned again. The more she thought about it, the colder she felt, as if something cold was emanating from her body. She felt like she was in an ice cellar, and all the cold feelings were doubly amplified in her body. The ancient ape king spent a long time scouting in the sky. Seeing that the government troops and the disciples were working together perfectly, he used his magic power to create a strong wind, which made it impossible for the government troops to open their eyes and shoot arrows from the sky. Then he seized the favorable opportunity and launched a full-scale attack. In this way, the general attack of the flying beast demons was immediately launched. This battle ended in a great victory. As the leader of the Thousand Islands Alliance, Bu Yunfan will definitely reward those who have made contributions. When Chani saw Yang Qingdi's face, she was shocked. Yang Qingdi's originally handsome and heroic face became hideous and distorted, and his pair of black pupils turned blood red. Only Zhixiang himself knew that this set of armor, which originally belonged to him, was resonating with its master. Filong Bridge? Isn't that the bridge to the west of our school? Lin Peng was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the place where the black-faced man was killed was actually near their school. Due to severe damage to the atmosphere, the average temperature on the Earth's surface began to drop sharply. Except for the area around the equator, the temperature in other areas has dropped below freezing point, especially in the areas around the North and South Poles, where the lowest temperature has dropped to 118 degrees Celsius. However, now is not the time to recall dirty jokes, because the situation seems to have reached the most urgent moment. The Snake Emperor nodded and said, "The Lionheart King is not a trustworthy person." He turned to the Kang Fox again, his eyes showing no mercy. Sensing the hostility in the air, the Sun Wukong in the original world stepped forward and stood in front of his wife. An hour later, Lu Dunyi changed into plain clothes and walked into Luo Yang's room. Then he took Luo Yang to the Lu family ancestral hall. The steps of Feni Palace were covered in blood today, but no one dared to discuss what happened today. Those who knew the truth were in awe of the queen and did not dare to speak carelessly. The rest of the Wanxian sect members were quite tempted by the benefits, and more people left Wanxian sect and joined the various countries to try their skills, and they often achieved something. In this way, Wanxian sect became inseparable from the mortal world, with various countries constantly paying tribute and Wanxian running around to help, and everyone benefited greatly. I don't know if it was because of the pain from the illness, but there was obvious pain in Ning Jiuan's eyes, and even a bit of pleading. As members of the third group, Captain Bo Jiu and General Kajum had their first rotation 6 years later. She thought that Xiangxia was not only not pregnant, but was also beaten and confined to her room. Is this the truth? Looking at the shocked expressions of the crowd, Shen Yu smiled. At his level, he was used to not being surprised by either honor or disgrace. In the main tent of the Zhou army, Zhang Ren, Yang Yang, Zhang Liao and other generals were displayed. The chief general was Zhang Ren, a great general from Shu, and Sima Lang and Fa Zheng were the military advisors. Discovery Channel is the world's largest documentary producer and buyer. It attracts the world's best documentary makers, so Discovery Channel's programs are considered to be the best documentary entertainment programs in the world. So that's how it is. I have benefited a lot from listening to your words, sir. Qin Huayu said with a bow. As soon as Shen Yu finished speaking, there was a buzzing sound coming from the sword light, and a figure vaguely fell down with a black gas in the sound. There are still 23 bodyguards in the room now, including Hu Yuqian. These bodyguards are different from those outside. Some Taoist magical powers are not of a high enough level and are destined to fail to pass the stage of merging with the primordial spirit. Instead, they may disturb the primordial spirit and cause the cultivator to fail in breaking the mirror. Therefore, they must be abandoned when it comes to the stage of condensing the Dharma images of heaven and earth. After a long time, Chen Yi still looked shaky. Although he was covered with wounds, he gritted his teeth and refused to fall. As for the artistic conception of this master's sword of the heavens, it is the coming of the heavens, blessing the sword. Every ray of sword light seems to manifest a kind of wonderful truth of heaven and earth, penetrating the 9 heavens and 10 earths, and extending infinitely. Pan and Dong thought at the same time, why is she making such a fuss? Can't she just make a good appearance? But she has a beautiful figure, which is pleasing to the eye. This time Yixin could no longer use the highly dark technique, because even if it lost its sight, the sonic dragon still had sensitive ears, and it could lock and flush Rotom through ultrasound. Who are you? As she spoke, Lin Xiaoyu stepped out of the elevator with a look of anger on her face. Especially her smile, which seems to be born with a little shyness. When she smiles, the girl next door immediately appears, just like the childhood sweetheart in people's longed-for memories, who stands on tiptoe and waves at the door every day, and waits for someone to go home together after school. Yang Nuo saw a bony hand handing a terminal to his dear sister, and his dear sister stopped talking to her. Because Pishu was in the round container, there were not many strong winds surrounding it. In addition, Pishu's eyes and attention were focused on the energy block above, so Pishu's dizziness was not particularly strong. Chapter 26 Emperor Yu's Dagger. Isn't it? I am a god on earth. All the money I want to earn is lined up and delivered to my door. Har har har. Bursts of laughter were heard, and the group of people slowly approached. Lin Jiang did not go forward, but stared at everyone coldly. After all, he didn't know where these people came from. At this moment, the fire tiger had exhausted the last bit of its demonic power. The flames around it disappeared, and the single horn on its head had become dim and dull. It no longer had any spiritual power. The tiger's body shook a few times, and finally fell to the ground with a thump. When Yang Bo received the news that Zhao Long's troops were pursuing him without authorization, he was surprised for a long time and quickly called everyone to discuss the matter. After the banquet, Sun Quan ordered someone to send Guo Jia to the post house to rest, and summoned Zhang Zhao and Zhang Hong to the palace to discuss matters. Although what you say is always different from what I think, it always makes me feel that it is right. Aoi was very confused. Gertrude didn't respond and started to cry. Yuzha patted her shoulder to comfort her. The Thunder Tribulation is divided into 9 levels. It is said that the ghost immortals have the bodies of yin gods before they go through the Thunder Tribulation. After going through the 9 levels of Thunder Tribulation, they can become yarn gods and attain the status of gods. After seeing posts on the internet starting to speak up for them, at Lu Jiqiang's suggestion, the internet trolls who had been cursing immediately turned their guns around and began to refute the rumors about Allure International's cosmetics. The public opinion changed drastically in the blink of an eye. Does anyone know how Cao Ben and his son died? The monk asked loudly as he stood in front of the palace gate, his face as cold as iron, without any expression. Such a wonderful performance should be his most favorable protection. And what he needs to do next is to add another chip to make it even better. At that time, she was sure that she loved Xiao Qi. Although this love seems ridiculous and childish now, she was certain at that time. After taking a quick glance at the scene in the hall, Xiao Fei came in front of Chen Yaoyao with an expressionless face. He didn't know anyone here. He was only familiar with Chen Yaoyao, and the next person was leader number 1. The smile on Yang Bo's face gradually faded. He turned and looked at Yu Junyao. The Han family is too messy. I thought we could stay here for a while longer. We don't have to leave in a hurry. It's okay. Yu Junyao said. At this moment, the door was pushed open, and Wang looked at the two men who suddenly broke in with a somewhat surprised expression. Long before the queen passed away, His Majesty had intended to bring Yu Shu into the palace, but it did not happen for various reasons. As more and more people were imprisoned, the atmosphere in the court became increasingly tense. Everyone was secretly wondering when Emperor Yuan Kang would stop. A dozen tents were on fire at the same time. Anyone with common sense would have guessed that someone must have set the fire in secret. The location of this building is relatively remote, and usually no one comes here, so it is difficult to be discovered. It seemed that the old man knew many secrets that the Yang family didn't know, which made him feel not as at ease as at the beginning. For him, the issue between him and the emperor now involves issues of past and present lives. One of the old emperor and he must fall, and only then will the matter be over. Saixia. She shook her head in disbelief, and liquid gushed out of her eyes again, like a burst dam. A khaki light curtain instantly stood up in front of Gang Yi, emitting extremely violent flames. The wide area defense light curtain was actually cracked. Although it did not shatter directly, it was almost there. Song Li opened his mobile phone and ordered the door-to-door delivery service. After a while, brand new sheets and clothes were delivered. Well, Sieg originally hoped to use Cyrus's power to help him keep an eye on Taizero. Chapter 27. Throw it away as soon as possible. Emperor Hanxian was clearly biased towards Bailey Zue. However, most people in the palace did not stand up for Bailey Zuan, the 9th princess. In fact, it was not just Emperor Hanxian. Many men in the palace also felt pity for the two stunning beauties when they saw them crying so pitifully. They also felt hatred for the 9,000-year-old princess who bullied the two stunning beauties. After hearing this, Yonghang nodded repeatedly. Yonghang looked left and right. The room was empty. There was basically no place to hide the gun. Yonghang couldn't help but get anxious. However, the tension was only temporary. As a soldier, Yonghang's ability to respond could stand the test. Where is the second lady now? Have you asked the imperial physician from the palace to check again? Su Shiyan asked. Many times, her words represented Qi Yi. After Yang Zewan left, Queen Shen's gaze turned cold when she looked at Mu Heng again. Looking at this fire wolf, Tai Junyi immediately knew the innate skill of this red flame wolf. I walked to the nearest convenience store in the west of the city and bought a bag of beer. Then I returned to the stone bridge. She was still there, waved to me, then ran over, took the beer and put it on the ground, and took a can and opened it first. No, I want to practice martial arts. There's nothing interesting to see here. Don't disturb my practice. Tai Junyi flatly refused. Huh? Tai Junyi finished his practice and looked at the sky. It was already night. He tidied up his clothes and went to sleep. Her heart trembled, she clenched her teeth, stretched out her hands, and hugged Mu Heng's waist tightly. It can be seen that Ling Shuanger is really a little hungry. Her mouth has never rested. I don't know why she can eat so much. Nangong Yuhuan smiled and said nothing more. The three of them drank for a while before leaving. The next morning, after the morning bell rang, Nangong Yuhuan planned to leave Chunhua Palace and rush to the dance department. Mu Xing has already detected with his spiritual sense and spiritual eyes that the bloody smell does not come from human blood, but the blood of poultry such as chickens and ducks, and does not contain any demonic aura. Originally, the fat man wanted to stop the madman and ask him to chat for a while, but Hao Jian stopped the fat man and told him to let him go. The second elder said that the first elder accidentally obtained a flame chrysanthemum some time ago. This kind of chrysanthemum can no longer be considered an ordinary plant, it can be called a miracle medicine, which is specially used to treat this extremely cold body. When the two meet in the body, they will cancel each other out, and eventually the extremely cold body will return to normal. Hua Shishuan continued to tell me urgently that judging from the time, the Moon Palace 9 dragon boat should be not far from completing the crystal charging. Once it obtains the map of the divine realm, it will be able to find a way to return to the divine realm. Lin Fei quarreled with Lin's father and mother every day and refused to marry Mua Chen, and the Lin family was in chaos. But it was different after returning to China. At least, both of them could calm down. At least, Chen Rong could give Li Jia some money every month. At least, Chen Rong could still earn a lot of money every month. An hour later, Yi Feng had finished refining. There were many more level 3 talismans in the spirit ring. An evil smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then he got up from the bed, washed up, and pushed the door open to go out. What Mary is going to talk about now is a serious matter that she needs to take responsibility for. Compared to other people, he, whose strength has reached the peak of the mythical level, is very clear about the meaning behind such a perfect power of law. Li Luo ordered the front troops to wait for a while he discussed with Ji Yu Chen and the others. At this point, no one was willing to back down. Even the GUYA people who had been silent since they went down to the ground had no intention of retreating, let alone others. Although before this, in order to ensure that there would be no interruption in communication with the Sunset Mountains due to unexpected circumstances, Li Ran had also determined the transmission routes outside this desert main city and in the other 2 surrounding empires. Don't be afraid, Sister Hua. Even if there are 1,000 wolves outside, they can't come in. Yang Zhan answered easily. The upward passage was carved out by humans, with the exit at the top. The passage was full of potholes and the workmanship was not exquisite, but extremely rough, and it also revealed panic and urgency. Yi Xiaoxiao shrank back timidly, looked at the strange-nosed Chanxing Wangyu, and quickly shook her head. The governor of Liangjiang Wu Zhifeng, the provincial minister of justice Yuan Bingzi, and the chief justice Shi Pejuan who was rescued later became Shui Rong's accomplices, turned against the enemy and led the enemy troops into the pass. Prince Beijing Shui Rong named his country Da Qing, so his soldiers were called Qing soldiers. The people in Qianyun also shared the same feeling. Although they all knew that the worst that could happen to them was that they would die, the appearance of the god-level creatures made them extremely shocked, but they had to admit that they didn't want to leave the battlefield anymore. Just when Yi Qi felt that he could not hold on any longer, suddenly an immense amount of spiritual power came from nowhere, supporting Yi Qi and completing all the remaining consumption for him. It was a foregone conclusion that Ling Daozi was from Dalian Palace, and it was also expected that he was stronger than himself. If he was defeated by him, it would not be a big deal, because, since the beginning of the Sky Dome discussion competition, everyone had realized this, and whenever Ling Daozi appeared, he would get first place. Chapter 28 Stealing. Looking at the information of this Dao Ji, Shen Qinhao fell into deep thought. Could it be that a business rival really did it? But how could those people invite people from the underworld? There was a ship approaching the ship, people on both sides were communicating, and the flag signal meant that it was safe. Little did they know that the Budo offered a price of 20,000 yuan, and as long as they found the whereabouts of this man, they could come to the headquarters. I sighed softly and then fell into silence. I wasn't kidding Xiaoari. I didn't believe that a love that had been entangled between them for so many years would end just like that. But I had to learn a lesson from it. I couldn't help but start to examine myself at the moment, but I had no clue. Daddy, why are they not wearing any clothes? How funny. A soft voice made Shen Qianhao even more ashamed and angry. Only then did he realize that he and Zhao Huan were still naked at this time. Under such a sharp attack from Hun Qian, Mu Yuan, holding the star-slaying sword in his hand, a blood-colored shadow of a warrior appeared behind him, and he slashed out with a sword to kill. Chen Wanxiu winked at Chen, then reached out and touched the silver hairpin on her head and the earrings on her ears, indicating that Chen would not let her suffer any loss and asked her to be patient for the time being. Could it be that she wants to negotiate terms with you? Leng Ruohan's eyes flashed with cunning. Jiang Yuanju hurried over and Lao Bai pulled the car door. Fortunately, the passenger side could be opened. The tycoon was completely overthrown, and Guandabao and others not only no longer had to pay interest every month, but they might also have to recover part of their losses. Liu Heng stopped his actions, let go of Zhao Beichen, took off his coat and put it on Zhao Beichen. But Zhang Yin did not see He Yubai's reaction, because he saw Phyllis coming and went straight to her. Guandabao and others never thought that Song Guangming would suddenly drag them together with this group of creditors, and they thought that Song had gained some benefits. Li Da is a retainer of the Liu family, the commander of the Longwu army in the imperial city's imperial guards, and his official title is Right Commandant. He is also Li Zhaorong's cousin and the uncle of the 4th and 5th princes. Seeing that Feng An didn't answer her, Nai Meng pursed her lips slightly unhappily, with a hint of grievance in her eyes. When Luo Zhaijun strode into the front hall, Luo Zhenji and Qi Fuqian were sitting on the left and right of the main seat in the room. Didn't you say it yourself that there was silver in the purse? Why are you running away now? When Dong Qing saw Mu Ziyuan was about to leave, he became even more certain that the purse did not contain silver. Liu Cuizhi looked at Mu Ziyuan hesitantly, knowing full well that the jade pendant was not an ordinary item. Maybe it would be of great use in the future. Oh, you are finally here. An old man who looked shaky and leaning on a cane saw the arrival of their hall master, stood up with difficulty and greeted him. Li Feng, are you ready? Wang Jingjing was still a little frightened and said to Li Feng doubtfully. To be honest, this ghost wristband is not a good piece of equipment, but its magic defense is increased quite a lot, which also increases the value of the ghost wristband. Yang Bufan put it away and threw it into the infinite space of Linglong, and continued to move forward with the polar ice. The gap was opened, and the entire soul-scorching hell shook with destruction. Although the hell-suppressing king was defeated, the powerful force of the law was still taking effect passively, trying its best to repair the broken parts. Li Feng tensed up all his nerves, ready to deal with any disturbance from the other party. He was not worried about himself, but what he feared most was that Xie Yuanyi would be hurt. Even if she lost a hair, Li Feng would feel distressed. Boss, this can't really be a treasure. Charming Guy couldn't help swallowing and asked when he saw Zhang Yang's appearance. Song Xiang exuded a powerful aura and cold murderous aura, which instantly filled the entire space. The air was as heavy as a mountain, making it difficult to breathe. The man with earrings and others were called up one by one. Since Fang Chen had warned them in advance, they did not dare to play any tricks. Wei Dongming also wanted to say a few words of courtesy, which was the secret of being an official, so that he would have an excuse when problems arose in the future. The golden flame of Severing World fell on the stone giant, and it was immediately like encountering an enemy. Wisps of black gas were emitted from the stone giant's body, but every time a bit of it emerged, it would be suppressed by the power of the flame of Severing World. As long as Yu Yaoyao is cleansed by Ji Yu Qingxuan's green lotus lamp, the buried and dusty memories in her mind can be uncovered again. The two were startled and looked at each other. They found that the other was also looking at them, and immediately dodged as if they had been electrocuted. Khan Rinjia covered his chest and vomited blood. Seeing that these people were no match for Shen Jinyan, he did not dare to continue and could only lead everyone to retreat in a hurry. He did not look like someone who would give up. In this wave of reminiscing about childhood and listening to inspiring songs, no ordinary topic can surpass it. However, Hansha remained calm, as he had even managed the more frenetic MIDI music festival. After what happened before, Nan Shutong is not so reckless anymore. He now listens to Lin Shuangjiang very much. Normally, he will not take action easily unless she tells him to do something, but he still looks unwilling to give up. He turned around, picked up his coat and left without saying anything more. However, the next morning, experts from home and abroad came to consult and examine her mother. As a middle-level administrator who is neither high nor low, I can only take on the important task assigned by the leader and accept the user's anger calmly. It would be useless to find someone higher than me for this matter, and it would be embarrassing to find someone lower than me. This is the management ability of the leader, I thought. In fact, if you remember what I said in chapter 88, you should remember what I said about the main god space. Chen Qian interrupted suddenly. Although Li Jing was also afraid, he was a grown man and the dead were dead, so he bravely led the way. He poured the soul power in his body into it, and suddenly, the ape spirit's body tilted slightly, causing his arm holding the hammer to drop nearly 3 inches. I think Yun Baibo must be a Qingxian disciple who was sent to Maishan to practice, or he was invited by Maishan to participate in the practice. Chen Feng said. Chapter 29 Stop. In the Law Enforcement Hall, Lin Jiang was just entered and was pushed directly into a holding room. He watched Zhao Meng take away the dagger. Zhao Meng took the dagger, looked at Lin Jiang with disdain, and then made a phone call directly. "Where are the things?" came a cold question from the other end of the phone. Zhao Meng smiled attentively. "Mr. Tang, the things are here with me." The third young master was the only one who had a promising future and could take on such an important responsibility. The fourth young master and the fifth young master were brothers from the same mother, but their personalities were completely different. Xie Changyan's handsome face was his life. No matter how much money Song Changning gave him, it couldn't compare to his face, so he had no choice but to confess. Moreover, Qin Feng could also tell that this person's voice was deliberately disguised, and it was very likely that the two knew each other. So that night, I earned another 16,500 yuan, plus the 5,000 yuan left from last night, which is more than 20,000 yuan. Hilko disagrees with Vandel and wants to continue leading the people of the lower city to fight against the upper city at all costs. By the time Mr. and Mrs. Ruan found out, it was too late. The quota could no longer be revoked, let alone replaced. It was as if he had not killed his own brothers or sister-in-law. To him, those he had killed with his black magic were just ordinary beasts with cold blood and cold flesh. What did you say, Milo? Ike jumped up immediately and tried to make a gesture with Milo. A few lazy guys in the Zhu family were arrogantly directing others to do things, when they were suddenly notified that they were fired. The Beast King was annoyed when he saw Mo Jingyun swaying left and right in front of him. He wanted to stop and try again, but he didn't expect that just when he was about to exert force, he felt his body's center of gravity become unstable. Ouyang Mingyu knew that if these 8 people met any one of Dongfang Bai and Zhang Shenfeng, they would be dead, but she guessed that since these 8 people had lived here for a long time, they must have some understanding of the hidden weapons and mechanisms of the mausoleum. If she could use the power of these 8 people, her chances of winning against Zhang Shenfeng and Dongfang Bai would increase by 30%. Li Gingxin's pupils constricted and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He increased his speed to the extreme, but it was too late. With her sleeves rolled up, Qin Chao's delicate arms were covered with bruises of varying depths. Each bruise was at least as thick as a thumb, and looked particularly unsightly on her fair hands. Murongfu had just finished getting ready with his ministers when they heard angry shouts coming from the forest. They all changed their expressions and looked at each other. The arena was built in the center of the city lord's mansion, in a square shape of about 100 square meters. 4 meters away from the arena were the general audience seats. Opposite the arena was the rostrum, which was set up for the important people in the city lord's mansion. He didn't expect Xu Moran to be so happy when he heard that Xu Fengli was arranged to marry by old lady Xu. If he had known this, he should have told her earlier. Commander Ren. Liang Qingmore's eyes were misty with tears, which aroused Ren Chuanyan's tenderness. At this moment, with just one word from her, he would go through mountains of swords and seas of fire without any regrets. Mr. Hua, the auction is about to begin. Yang Hua caught a glimpse of the smile on his lips when he walked over and was slightly surprised. No. I volunteered to go to Dongyu instead of Tsangyu. You don't have to feel guilty. Gusu Haiyue interrupted Wutong and ruthlessly broke free of her with both hands, then hugged Liang Chenyu and was about to leave. He made it clear that he didn't want to talk to her at all, and didn't want to see her at all. I don't know how long it took, but a strange wind blew, dark clouds covered the bright moon, and a slight chill came into the air. Su Lingyu vaguely felt that this was very similar to the sea of flowers she saw at Baiyun Temple that year, gorgeous and dazzling, and intoxicating. I said, I want to pick up Sheila. Zhao Qiushu's tone was stiff, and it could be heard that he was suppressing his anger. Chapter 30 Hitting a Wall. He didn't expect that today's young students actually know these things. Xiao Yi is an absolute expert in when to add water, how much water to add, the grinding direction, the rotation and friction strength when grinding ink. Lu Chenyu hugged a holy fruit tree and turned half a circle with difficulty. Several spears were heavily inserted into their holy fruit tree and broke. Several spears were stuck at his feet, and the spear bodies were shaking constantly. Although they had played together when they were young, and were very familiar with the center brothers and sisters, things had changed now and he was no longer the boy he once was. Holding Yao Xier in his arms, feeling the special elasticity of his chest, Zhuo Jin looked back at the dark face of one of his future father-in-law and smiled bitterly. Zhuo Jin intuitively felt that his guess was getting closer to the truth, and he did not hesitate to use the raw stone to condense the 5-color spiritual power. But Su Wanyang didn't think it was a big deal. People in the previous world all advocated keeping fit and believed that eating coarse grains was good for the body. He originally wanted to rush out of room 8532 directly, but after thinking about it, Xiao Yi decided to enter the next room through the window, and then wait in the next room for that young master Han to come. Yeah. Although they knew Xiao Yu won, when Chu Mengxue and Chu Mengyu heard the referee announce that Xiao Yu won, they both shouted happily. This can be seen from the business of the foreign shops in Banshan town. Li Zhongjie pulled the reins slightly and was able to roughly control the direction. Anyway, he didn't plan to win the title of best rider on his first ride, so he just followed behind the crowd. Zhen Dao did not react to the harassment from his sister Xinshin. Xinshin thought that she did not do well, so she increased her intensity, and at the same time the buzzing sound from her mouth became louder. At this time Zhen Dao reacted by touching Rao's ears, and Xinshin laughed happily. When talking about this, we must mention some things. Spirits are like this, but it is difficult for spirits to produce pure mental power. Usually, spirits perceive the world through their original mental power, which greatly affects the spirit's consciousness. How could Xiao Hongxing, who always thought highly of himself and was known for his wisdom, tolerate such a sudden and huge contrast? Okay, I agree to visit your Vatican, but you also have to show your sincerity so that we can feel at ease. Li Qingyuan said. Guan Liang's sister seemed to notice that something was wrong with Guan Liang, and patted him on the back after the worship. With a loud bang, sparks and smoke engulfed several cloud cars with no one next to them and the monsters. After reaching an agreement, the two armies began to march towards Yuzhou. As for Wang Jian's 3,000 elite cavalry, when they arrived in Xiangguo, they received a message from the Shadow Guard. Mo Feng ordered him to stay and wait for Xiang Yu's 3,000 cavalry. After a few brief greetings, the call was hung up. Yu Qi then sent his account password for Zone 4. However, this ward will be removed in less than 10 seconds, and the area around the dragon pit will become completely dark in an instant, and the player will have to risk his life to place a ward. Then, everyone except Johnny raised their hands. Johnny's face changed several times. It seemed that the grey monster did not leave a good memory in his childhood. After thinking it over again and again, he wondered if he was a little neurotic. Finally, he gritted his teeth and raised his hand. This rope made of single-molecule metal composite materials is only as thick as a finger, but it can statically fish up objects weighing nearly 2 tons and can withstand an instantaneous pulling force of more than 1 ton. There will be absolutely no problem in terms of protection. Lotter didn't care, so he took out the magic camera and gave it to Elena. Then he took out an energy tube and activated the transformation. He controlled his own shadow and it was wrapped around him. Bang! 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 3 gunshots ended Shui Hao's contemplation and also ended the plan of Wang Ping and others before it was implemented. The hospital has completely returned to calm, but Yuan Zhenxie feels that suspicions similar to Akai's are spreading in the hospital. However, Transparent Caesar has less training, so Kaiser's progress is slow. It is really a dilemma. On the one hand, there is his own progress, and on the other hand, there are Easter eggs. It is a headache-inducing choice. After weighing the pros and cons, it is useless to keep this old guy who carries the virus and is as cunning as a fox. It will also easily provoke an attack from Paradise City. It is safest to kill him directly. Pucci, Han Gang's words made everyone laugh so hard that they held their stomachs. Although the room was very soundproof, the sound still penetrated the entire hospital, making other patients terrified. Gar gar gar. A human figure covered in a black robe walked out slowly from the darkness. Because the figure was covered in a black robe, Sally could not tell the race of the human figure. Originally, Du Ziyuan wanted Songzi to name him Original Plan Nana, but this proposal was directly rejected by Songzi. Then her own proposal, Yuan Plan Dadao, was also rejected. Du Ziyuan's reason was that she didn't have one. In the end, he had to compromise and used poison. Liu Yusha, it seems she also knew Bu Yunqiao in high school. Lin Yi frowned. She's already booked in high school, how many years until junior high school? In this era, it's really fucking impossible to survive. Yunsu's face turned pale instantly, and she held a piece of paper tightly in her hand. She did not ask for a marriage fortune, but she asked for a peace fortune in the Sanyuan Hall. When Qin Fen said these words, he subconsciously exuded a domineering aura, and his unquestionable expression made Zhao Lin shiver all over. Especially the momentum that burst out from his eyes at that moment, which almost made him collapse to the ground at that moment. After eating the meat, Wu Feng walked to the entrance of the tree hole, which was about 60 meters from the ground. He felt that it was enough, so he walked to the tree hole. The moment he jumped down, his mind moved, and his special ability of gliding wings appeared. Wu Feng felt 2 streams of air suddenly spurted out from his back, as if he had two invisible wings on his back. It's enough that you have this intention. Liu Yu smiled, and it was an extremely warm smile, the kind of smile that could dispel the haze and make people feel warm from the bones. The lineage of the ancestral which has the 12 heavenly gods and demons formation, which, once activated, is enough to fight against the immortal true gods. Dong Huang Tai also controls the Juqian star fighting immortal formation, which, after some arrangement, can also deal with a true god. With the cooperation of Jin Yuanzi, the old ancestor of the STYX and others, it is not a problem to fight against the three immortal true gods. However, after drinking with the two men, Lin Feng did not fall down. Although he still looked dizzy, he still insisted on not falling down. Chapter 31. A visitor arrives. Thank you very much today, Mr. Lin. Liu Guofeng looked at Lin Jiang, his eyes full of gratitude. Mr. Lin, if you hadn't helped me today without holding a grudge, my son would have been in great danger. After Liu Guofeng finished speaking, he started walking around the house. He wanted to find a valuable gift to thank Lin Jiang, but after walking around, he found that there were only some ordinary things in the house. A deafening dragon roar resounded through the sky. Behind Yi Yunqian, the shadow of the golden dragon became more and more solid, almost turning into a physical entity. Yi Yunqian had appeared behind him at some point, with one hand firmly grasping his shoulder. Yuan Xingyi, however, had a cold expression on his face. This General Fan Yang, who doesn't look very smart, does he really have such ability? The person who was speaking had not yet finished his words when he was suddenly hit in the face by a shoe from the dark, and he had no time to dodge. At the same time, Yi Yunqian's other hand had grabbed Yi Changhe's throat like lightning. At the beginning, the four tribes of Peacock, Phoenix, Kunpeng and Dopeng Eagle, descendants of Yuan Feng, joined forces with the Zhulong tribe and the Titan Python tribe to attack the Huangqian sect in a vein in order to obtain the essence and blood of the ancestral dragon. Although Sarutabi Hiruzen did not know that such a tragic thing would happen, he was worried about the Third War and was indeed working hard to prepare. No matter how strong their wind and waves are, I remain unmoved. No matter how things change, I remain as firm as a mountain. Moshi was very happy. He walked forward with the jade token in his hand. Halfway, he ran into Lang Yunfeng, who was holding a piece of paper with a sun on it. The ministers cried sadly, not because they felt sorry for Emperor Liang who could not become their Prince of Peace, but because they were worried that the northern Man cavalry would attack and destroy everything, and they would lose their own wealth and glory. But people are not machines after all, and it is impossible for them to live completely in reason. Even the great magician is no exception. If they didn't see it, it would be fine, but now those residents are below, and Sutu has set an example with actual actions. It is impossible to let them leave at this time without any psychological burden. Hundreds of kilograms of potatoes and sweet potatoes cost Zhu Yuanqiang nearly 2,000 yuan. In the end times, he was already thankful to heaven and earth for being able to recoup his capital by selling these things. I thought I could escape the zombies' attacks, but 1 day, 2 days, and a week passed, and the zombies showed no signs of leaving. With the heavy door, the zombies had no way of getting in. Although life inside was crazy, at least I could survive. With a flash of sword, Yiming casually killed a king-level native who was about to launch a sneak attack on him. At the same time, he quickened his pace, trying to reach Baijie City as soon as possible. Originally, the coal warehouse in Kyoto was not profitable, but ever since the Fang family helped the Ren family get in touch with that nobleman, the coal warehouse in the south is now making considerable profits. No, I don't know what Jiabao did, but I feel he is stronger than before. It's a bit difficult to kill him. Wutong shook his head. He did show no mercy just now. As for the elixirs and elixir materials sold by other shops, stores and individuals, most of them are fakes and high-quality imitations that are extremely difficult to distinguish. From this, it can be seen that Saviana is definitely not as cold as she appears. Before, Saviana had been using Wutong as a test subject, but in fact, everything was under her control. And now the situation is unclear. Saviana hesitated. Lin Shixiang raised his hand and overturned the motorcycle. Then the motorcycle exploded and caught fire, rolling to the side of the road. Hearing this, a drop of cold sweat slid down Han Xuan's forehead. How dare he refuse in this situation? There is no need to think about it. If he dares to refuse, he will definitely die. Sharby, please sit down. Giorgio was very enthusiastic. His pronunciation was far less accurate than Victor and Hugo, so Sharby became Sharby. Chapter 32, Get Him Out. Along their way they learned that the old man was released from prison and had no one in his family, so he became an employee of the labor camp, responsible for driving a horse-drawn carriage and transporting goods. His work was very free, and occasionally he would bring in some contraband such as cigarettes and alcohol, so the prisoners respected him very much. At this moment, hearing Xie Ruoyan's question, Xie Ruohan's beautiful eyes moved, her lotus steps moved lightly, her eyes were always like a wave of lake water, without causing the slightest ripple. Feeling the familiar breath, Kratos couldn't help but let out a low growl in his throat. The Spartan spear appeared in his hand, and he gathered all his strength and threw it out vigorously. Outside the port window is the majestic Horsehead Nebula. The dreamlike colors spread across the universe. Above, below, left, and right, there is nothing but the stars. On the other side of the spacecraft, a blue planet floats in space. That is the capital of the Empire, Star Sanhai. A birdman covered his arm, looking at his junior brother with red eyes, who was drawing a knife against him. Surprise, confusion, anger, and many other expressions appeared on his face. He never expected that his closest junior brother would attack him by surprise. Taoism, Buddhism, and the Western Holy Bishop, the three magic weapons belong to three camps. Isn't this a three-way balance of power? Jiu Shiu immediately smiled and said, "Brother, we won't disturb you anymore. We'll go back first." Seeing that Jiu Shinian didn't say anything, she immediately took Yi Qinglan's hand and slipped out. If it weren't for Jiu Shinian's clever scheme, the third prince's land tax reform wouldn't have ended in disgrace. Although the emperor didn't reprimand him too much, anyone with a discerning eye could see that he was disappointed with the third prince. As a result, the image of the crown prince in the eyes of many officials immediately became more prominent. Some people have raised doubts, saying that even if Guojia is an omniscient person, it is impossible for him to control the fate of his disciples. Although they didn't like Odysseus's bossy tone, the three gods didn't hesitate and joined forces again, exerting their strongest means to press down on the pyramid. They had already seen that the pyramid was the source of the mysterious man's power, and as long as the pyramid was suppressed, he would be helpless. "All right, let's go on." Urgaz's father looked at Lu Jingyi. "Why don't you go to the front?" He couldn't observe their situation from the back, and if he had paid more attention to what happened just now, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But this is not important anymore, because Ding Lao and his men have long said that the military will no longer interfere in anything Zhao Taizhu does in the free country. In order to maintain China's international image, the country will no longer come forward to help Zhao Taizhu. Above this lake, a void passage opened up amidst the dense rocks, and an extremely thick water stream was falling from the sky and pouring into the lake. The wound was extremely smooth, and because of the residual breath of Liu Yue, even the blood did not flow out. It was as if there was an invisible light film that blocked the blood from splashing. Judging from the symptoms, it shouldn't be the case. "Sister-in-law, please stretch out your hand so I can take your pulse carefully." Zhang Yong felt that the problem was serious and decided to secretly use his divine power to check it out. But now it happened in such a busy place as Jinbeiman, and almost everyone in the imperial capital was watching. He couldn't protect or be partial, so he could only bite the bullet and deal with the matter. Thinking about this, the Chilean beast could no longer control itself and ran towards Su Jinsi. But he was a little confused. Qiu Xiuder clearly wanted to kill him, so why was he helping him break through to the nascent soul stage now? Could it be that they wanted to assassinate some high-ranking official? Zhao Taizhu thought that this was the only possibility that would make them go to such great lengths to dig a tunnel, and since they came from City B, Zhao Taizhu was even more certain of this idea. "I didn't expect that Zhang Yang, who is so thin, had such strong hands. His hands were like pliers, grabbing my arms so tightly that I couldn't even break free." The bodyguard was convinced of his defeat this time. After a mother said this, she suddenly couldn't support herself and her body tilted as if she was about to fall to the ground. Fortunately, the people next to her supported her and the glass bottle, otherwise the bottle would have broken and would have been difficult to pick up. Shushan narrowed his eyes into slits, looked coldly into the distance, and muttered in a low voice, his tone filled with strong hatred. Then, you can guess what the two of them talked about, and the result was that Chushen killed the Prince of Jin himself. Because he killed him, he was not implicated by His Majesty, but he has been in a difficult situation over the years. Cheng Ruoshue said slowly. Ren Qianqian looked at Jiang Yunchen in front of him and felt somewhat scared, but he had a lot of people behind him and his tone didn't show any sign of cowardice. "Although there was no water at that time, I still enjoyed it. But now it's so cold that I feel like I'm freezing to death and I don't want to go out. Logically speaking, as a venerable in the nascent soul stage, it would be impossible for her not to be alarmed if someone approached her. Could it be that someone with higher cultivation than her had also come here? Oh no. Thinking of this, she flew back. Chen Yaoyao was exhausted both physically and mentally after running all the way. But when she looked at the endless stream of people, her fatigue suddenly disappeared. Ruoshi didn't know what to do, and could only stroke her hair stiffly. Nanshuang lay prone on the couch, her whole body twitching, and her suppressed, painful sighs seemed to be drawn out from the depths of her soul, spreading throughout the room. Yi Liang was an official appointed by the imperial court after all, and he was shocked by the scene before him. However, fortunately, he was old and could keep his composure. Miao Miao went down the mountain again to find Bandang and the others. I heard that they were also going to the mountain to play. Today happened to be the day I went with them. If I spent 2 days, I might be caught in a storm of studying. When he saw Murong Qingyan's shining eyes, he couldn't help but laugh. At the same time, he also sighed in his heart that his Yanger was really too cute. If the player also controls a wild monster or hero of a faction, he can also make this kind of improvement. I'm a hunter, and I came to the city to sell my game. Mu Yuchen said, and then showed him 2 wild rabbits as big as pigs that he had shot on the road. But the base has no water source of its own and no stable food source. How can it feed the NPCs? Seeing the faint light appear, Wang Jing quickly placed the photo stone on the empty table. The next moment, a lifelike picture was projected from the photo stone. The game Portal Knights did live up to expectations. In just 8 days, the client had been downloaded 1 million times, and hundreds of thousands of people had registered accounts. Chapter 33, Fraud. At this time, the black snake's upright pupils emitted a strange black light. It was half standing in the lake, staring closely at Chen Mo, who had just flown away from its mouth. Thank you, Yunfei. Jiang Ru liked to hear this. Then the two of them walked side by side, chatting as they walked, to take the task. After 7 days of continuous bombing, the walls of Guangning City had long been reduced to ruins, and the 4 city gates had been blown to pieces, no longer serving any defensive purpose. The Ming army could attack Guangning City at any time. These production costs are certainly incomparable to the tens of millions of dollars spent on Hong Kong films, but they can definitely be said to be very high in the country at that time. Shaanxi merchants were asset-light businesses, and their business was to buy low and sell high. Their business as middlemen depended on cash flow, so if they seized Shaanxi merchants, they could directly seize several million taels of silver. If I can't do it, I will definitely lose face in front of my brother-in-law and even be branded as incompetent. My home is at the foot of the mountain, just keep walking west. My grandfather is at home. Biluo replied. Thinking of this, Liu Jian had no choice but to walk down from the dew-absorbing body with a bitter face. Compared with his previous, flirtatious performance, he was much more low-key this time and did not say too much. The end of this competition meant that his place in the central world was in jeopardy. Early that morning, Crown Prince Zhu Xilan suddenly led the Ming army into the government office. Princess Kuanqing once again hid in her bedroom and closed the door. At the same time as Jing Jibao's victory report came, Fang Yuan received another victory report from Yangzhou City and Jinan Prefecture. Bone armor overflowed from the body surface, and wings spread from the back to the sides. In just a few breaths, Han Chen transformed into a beast-shaped giant nearly 3 meters tall. Perhaps it was because the 2 major legions were not yet ready, so although there were occasional frictions along the line, it was generally calm. Using an ice blade to cut through the wood layer by layer, Zhao Dinghua found a very thin piece of lore fragment in it. Look, aren't these terracotta warriors living people? Their bodies are just containers for their souls, said the water element clone. Wu Lei took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. He could feel the wind flow from the outside. Then, the spiritual power that was swirling around him like a hurricane began to converge little by little, and he actually withdrew all his defenses. Hei Wudi looked at her in surprise, then looked at Wu Di, without saying anything, but obviously did not agree with it. Where? Let's have dinner together tonight and then go shopping. Mo Chen took his coat and prepared to go out. The crack on the demon spirit quickly spread amidst the astonished gazes, and finally exploded with a bang, and cracks appeared on the restrictions of the fighting arena. In the past, when the old man ate this, Li Dequan would remove the bones before giving them to him. When Li Dequan was about to use the silver knife to remove the bones, the old man did not wave his hand and insisted on gnawing the bones himself. He was about to leave, which was also a way of compensating her. He hoped that she would be happy in the future, so that his good intentions would not be in vain. If Suzhen's eyes were not so sharp that he could tell at a glance who the cultivation energy absorbed by Chuani Feisha came from, he would not have planned to tell Suzhen about the future. You know, swallowing Yuan Wanfa is a second-grade martial art, and its power is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Just send it here. Thank you for what you did today. Zhao Yulin stood at the door of the apartment, holding Leilei's hand and dragging the suitcase, and smiled at Luo Weibing. How is it possible? How can he, a person who has broken through the Dan realm, produce such a powerful force? Why is my Daiyuan Zhan not his match? What grade is his martial arts? Sun Qi didn't believe that he, a battle pattern master of the Shen level, would not be a match for Wu Yuan. So you have already arranged everything. Ling Feng took it and took a look. It was a medical research cooperation agreement. In fact, those who didn't know the truth thought that Qin Fengyi would fall out of favor. Apart from anything else, Minister Luan did not keep Qin Fengyi's disrespect in front of the emperor a secret, so many people knew about it. However, Jiu Mo's words made Wu Yuan confused again. Given Jiu Mo's strength and identity, he still needed to ask him for a favor? Kong Fang covered his nose and glared at Kong Yiji. Didn't he wash himself with water before coming here? At least he should have changed into clean clothes. The cave entrance still emitted a faint blue light, and this time, a red-eyed ghost bird appeared in the picture. The monkey stamped his feet in anxiety, but his arms were powerless to twist his thighs. He could only pray secretly that the 5 evils of Jiangbei were hiding in a cave warming by the fire and had not come out. At this time, Ling Yunxiao couldn't help but think of the time in the Haiyue imperial capital. That night, Kongbing Shuang revealed some information about her own life experience to Ling Yunxiao in an intoxicated state. It seemed that it also involved the Western continent, which was very complicated. Yushi smiled and looked up and kissed Xingjue's face, whispering, then clicked to accept, and the information began to be transmitted. How can I use it? It's very simple. The vitality of heaven and earth is very thin now. There is no cultivation at all, let alone the cultivation of the soul. When the maids saw that the usually polite housekeeper Yarn suddenly got angry, they all scattered and hurriedly went about their own business. What are you looking at? Xie Yu stopped crying and looked at Yi Yang. Yi Yang couldn't stand those eyes and quickly took out a Chen Yu immortal grass from his star ring and handed it to her. She believed that Xingjue and Yushi would take good care of the child and would never repeat her life like herself. Their fire diamond shield, that was hastily formed, was ultimately unable to completely withstand the destructive power of the opponent's dozens of wind blades. Link frowned, then walked towards Han Xiong. When he came to Han Xiong, Link squatted down and touched Han Xiong's brain with his hand, and touched other body parts that proved that Han Xiong was dead. However, when I actually saw the situation outside, I didn't feel angry, but I did feel a strange feeling, very awkward. No. Help me back to Qingshan Palace. Just ask the imperial physician to take a look. As she spoke, the 9th princess's face flushed red, with a hint of shyness. Their headless, laughing demon was stunned, and felt his arms were empty. The places where his arms were disappeared without a trace, without a sound. She waited until everyone was discouraged before sneaking over to a trash can and pulling out a picture that was still intact. Then Bailey Feiyan let out a sinister laugh, and suddenly his whole body was burning with flames, and there was thick black smoke in the flames. Chapter 34, The Confident Quack. Lin Jiang narrowed his eyes, looked at Yang Kunqi, and said in a cold voice, Dr. Yang, if you use traditional Chinese medicine to treat the hypothyroidism you mentioned, you must insert needles into the Shaoshang acupoint. Mr. Song is possessed by the devil, which caused his internal energy to be unable to disperse. If you insert needles into the Shaoshang acupoint, it will definitely cause internal energy stagnation and bleeding from all 7 orifices. When Lin Jiang said this, everyone was shocked, and there was more or less worry in their eyes. Wang Qiu was listening to them, but he was confused and had no idea what they were talking about. The Nanlong City Cultivation Hall is by no means comparable to the Wencheng Cultivation Hall. This is also normal. Although the Wencheng Pei family is the largest family of the Chinese nation, it is not yet in the mainstream in the cultivation world. Old Master Chu responded vaguely. Even if he acquiesced, he still wanted to hear what other conditions Chen Geng could offer him besides these two. Jinchi, everyone has a past and a past, I don't care. Zhu Lin smiled inwardly and was finally going to tell her the truth about Xing Yeping. This. How can I be so embarrassed? Dr. Mar, who had just seen the other person's son being so filial and felt a little uncomfortable, was stunned and said quickly. However, there was a hint of joy in his tone. Just as Volodya's tie was about to strangle the other person's neck, the other person suddenly turned his head and looked at him, and Volodya stopped in surprise. Huang Longzhenren and Nanji Xianweng's faces changed drastically when they heard this. If they offended the two great saints, the consequences would be disastrous. Everyone in the Chan sect knew that Yuan Shiqianzuan followed Laozi's lead. If they offended Laozi's master uncle, Yuan Shiqianzuan would be the first one who would not forgive them. In the hotel, after an extremely exciting bed battle that lasted from day to night, Heidi fell asleep exhausted. Lin Jinchi picked her up and walked towards the bathroom. What's going on with this master? Guan Xiao was puzzled. Influenced by his master, he was always polite to real monks. Since he started practicing martial arts, Lin Jinchi has become more perceptive than ordinary people. He knows that when his kung fu reaches a certain level, he can detect it even if the other party just looks at him. But if what Lin Bai said is true, then this man is too scary, and even Lin Laifu and He Wuchang may not be his match. With a loud bang, powerful force, flashing with dazzling golden light, collided fiercely, and the two figures saw a huge air wave burst out. After the air wave, Xiaoshan was as steady as a mountain, looking at the spirited middle-aged man opposite with fluttering clothes. The familiar face made Xiaoshan's eyes sparkle with bright light. Thinking of this, he shook his head and turned to go into the kitchen, only to see large Sugar walking out of the kitchen with wet hands, shaking off water droplets on his hands as he walked. Wei Yong chuckled, took the fat snake, pressed twice lightly with his thumbnail under the head to make a cross-shaped incision, held the snake's head with one hand, and gently pushed along the incision with the other hand, and the snake's skin was peeled off completely. Yao Fei did not notice Tang Luo's gaze. He moved his body and changed into a more comfortable position. The swift spirit cat dodged Han Yu's attack easily. It didn't look like it was fighting an enemy at all. It looked more like it was playing and was very happy. Not only me, you also have to protect the safety of the entire dragon group. We are a team, an indestructible team. After so many tests, Long Ci has regarded the members of the dragon group as his relatives in the last days. Xie Qian scratched his head embarrassedly as he listened to Chen Gongshu's words. Wang Yaqiao looked at the three people recognizing each other and said happily to them. Lei Mingxian placed one hand on her chest, where her heart was beating loudly. Tilda, can you be more subtle? In response to Cynthia's straightforwardness, Long Ci could only shake his head speechlessly. The person is gone, the dream is over, the heart is broken, the soul is lost, what can an empty shell of Pluto do? Chapter 35 Special Techniques. You are so bold and upright. You committed treason and killed 27 people in our inner courtyard. The evidence is irrefutable. You must be executed on the spot. Who will enforce the law? Sitting in the middle was a white-haired old man, about 70 years old, with eyes filled with anger. What are you thinking about now? Xue Wuming couldn't help but ask when he saw Ji Yufan lowering his head but with a sharp gaze, as if he was thinking about something. Fang Guan smiled proudly, and the others also admired his excellent archery skills. It was impossible for them to hit the target from 100 meters away, but 10 meters was about right. Liang Shan came up with a plan after hearing this. Although he didn't know much about the situation in Jiangnan, Zhu Shuzhen, as the lord of Renhuai City, could be said to be the biggest local boss in Jiangnan. Every move of Jiangnan City was under the eyes and ears of her subordinates. Number 1 knew very well what Murong Fu Lei wanted, so he indulged Murong Fu Lei so much. From the moment Murong Fu Lei came to CZ City, Murong Fu Lei handed his fate to CZ City. Then he let Murong Fu Lei and Zhuo Zhu fight each other, and then let T get rid of them. This car was not his, and he was not familiar with it at all, which caused him to fall behind. He was also restricted by the competition venue and was left far behind. Now he could not see the front. This battle was particularly difficult for him, but he would not give up. He would not lose until the last moment. Lin Mohan also fought hard. When Ji Mingshan first heard it, he nodded and repeated it, but then he said in horror as if he had hysteria. The expressions of Xiao Zhanwang and others suddenly changed, and they all burst out with spiritual energy, ready to fight to the death. Some people also shouted that they wanted to form an alliance with Pan Quangui and listen to him from now on. Har ha har ha. Xie Yuxiong and Meng Wuhan burst into laughter when they heard Ji Yu Fan's words. Even Wan Lingyu, who was originally angry, covered her mouth and laughed secretly. Although I made a lot of money through manufacturing techniques and the bonus of karma value I got from customer service, it was all in vain in the game if it was not converted into cultivation and equipment. Why are you all staring at me? After Xu Mo left, Zhao Xiaochen suddenly found himself feeling very uncomfortable. He looked around and realized that everyone was staring at him. He felt guilty immediately. How could one starve to death in front of food? Even if he really rushed in and grabbed a few bags of food, what would happen? He leaned back in his chair and lit a cigar to relieve his boredom. Knowing that William, an old-school soldier, did not smoke, he did not share it with him. Although the Ming dynasty, which was known for its toughness in diplomacy and had the reputation of no marriage alliance, no compensation, and no tribute, in his view it was just a shift from the cowardly extreme of the Sung dynasty to another extreme. Although the boxing gloves were provided by the martial arts school, Shi Chunlin and Lin Daoluan still went up to check the gloves and bodies of both men. Yang Le now knows that this golden conch space is a magical object, and the liquid inside is even more spiritual. Yang Le calls it spiritual liquid. After the verification just now, the golden conch spiritual liquid is definitely beneficial to humans. The King of Assassination. When Zhao Xiaochen heard the name, his heart trembled for no reason. At the same time, he thought of the dagger that had just been deeply embedded in the ground. He knew that this King of Assassination was definitely a super terrifying existence. After some consideration, Yang Le decided to choose the current office space for the security company from the duplex building on the first and second floors. The second floor will be used as the company's office, and the third floor can also be used for living. Shue's mother walked out of the room and saw that the person who came was Marji. She felt somewhat dissatisfied and indignant, but she couldn't say it directly. Yang and his party stayed in an inn in Bazhong City for 4 days, finally relieving the hardship of crossing the Maikang Road. Why are you looking at me? After all, I bought this coffee from abroad at a high price. Don't you want to try it? Qin Wei raised her eyes and looked at them. Chu Chen and Zhang Jian made a special trip to visit their uncle Yuan Qiangang. At this time, the three of them were discussing the sudden change in the celestial phenomena yesterday. This style of painting really gives people a strong sense of unreality and weirdness. Just like the monsters in the comics, when they really walk towards you, you have a sense of weirdness that you don't want to believe. At this time, Wei Kai Maiqing also came to Long Zhan. After not seeing him for a few days, the once domineering leader of the soldiers still had a stern expression, but the arrogance between his brows seemed to have faded a lot. The deep longing had already given rise to this impulse, and now that he had finally flown back, he had to have a good meal with her first. There is a sniper at the 7 o'clock direction. The enemy is obviously well prepared and has ambushed us here in advance. Lin Xiaoyun made a quick judgment. After finding a hiding place, he took out a telescope and observed the place ahead. Most of the disciples in the Dao Court fly in the air or ride on exotic beasts because the area of the Dao Court is so vast. Okay. You're awesome. Everything belongs to you. Anyway, I only look at the final result, so don't be like a bear trying to break off a stick and throw it away one by one. Come on and drink, continue. Yang actually believed in his brother's heart. Just like the demon tribe, many demon tribes were once people as totems of faith, doing things in secret and eating some religious offerings. All of this was kept secret and not let people know, so everything was peaceful. After deciding to bury his mother's ashes here, Chunan asked several craftsmen who came with him to start installing the tombstone that had been carried up, and he personally dug a pit of about 3 square meters with the people from Lao Shu's family. Lu Buji hurriedly tried to smooth things over, explaining that Luoju had just been settled, and there were many things to deal with. The situation was complicated, the enemy and us were in a state of tension, and we still had a lot of work to do, so the court sent 2 angels to guide the work, and we warmly welcomed them. Ru Yao nodded. She was still a little afraid of Lu Yu. After all, she was still Lu Yu's slave. There was no way. The Chen sisters were undoubtedly outstanding in their current environment, and naturally attracted the attention of many men. Chunan's appearance immediately attracted them, and naturally attracted many envious and jealous eyes. Just as Zhu Daorong left, someone came to report that Shenmuja's army had been attacking the city for who knows how many hours in the night, and a rough estimate is no less than 50,000 people. Shihua Gate had been lost, and the prince who entered the city through Donghua Gate joined forces and headed straight for Taiji Hall. Seeing this, the three of them laughed wildly, and then their momentum became more and more powerful. After putting away the sword, Sitagarbar Bodhisattva gave him a few more instructions. At this moment, Juyun had the 9-layer thunder tribulation pill and this unknown powerful sword, so he finally felt a little calmer. Chapter 36 What's going on? Lin Jiang looked normal, looking at Song Kaishan calmly, as if he had just said the most ordinary words. Little did he know what this sentence meant to Song Kaishan. Song Kaishan took a long time to swallow the tea in his mouth. The shock in his eyes became more and more intense. He looked at Lin Jiang and asked with some hesitation, what did you say? Lin Jiang meets Song Kai. It seems to have no power at all, but this Buddha fire is actually the fire of great wisdom in the heart, which can penetrate the surface and ignite the essence. My parents' skills are unique, and I can't let the bad guys know about them. I have already understood the true meaning of these skills, so you can take the secret book or not. Sichu Mingkong replied calmly. Yako Izarki squinted her eyes, as if she was making eyes at China, and there was a hint of something else going on. Meng Xiong stopped in the air again without any warning. He tilted his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He was greeted by a pair of eyes as calm as water, but revealing an unwavering will. It was Xiabingru. After the evil demons entered the heavens and all realms, they would directly devour the human practitioners they captured, and then through some other means, they would be able to monopolize the knowledge and understanding of cultivation of the human practitioners they had eaten, which was much easier than for them to comprehend it on their own. Having said that, he still unconsciously placed his hands on her hips to cover up the possibility of exposure. Okay. Since you are lucky, you can continue to stay in the Yi mansion. None of the maids in this mansion are satisfactory. Yilu looked impatient. It seemed that the maid who came to serve her yesterday did not meet her expectations. Not only was she full, she was also bloated. If her idol left now, she probably wouldn't be able to walk, and would probably feel like vomiting if she walked. Thinking of this, the pursuers' confidence returned, and even the uneasiness in their hearts seemed to fade a lot. Some of the pursuers even looked at Meng Xiong with disdain, their eyes full of sarcasm, as if they were laughing at him for bringing himself into a desperate situation. Third, after killing the red butt monkey, at least there are no powerful enemies left in the 33 demon heavens. Mr. Fan, didn't you say that after we arrive in Sonya this time, we would hold a big lucky draw on the beach? Bao Feiyang smiled and nodded to Fan Aihua. Li Ju, Wasai and a few others were different from them. They were originally captains, but were promoted by Donghua to generals of the Central Army, and had more soldiers under their command. However, these were not enough and were not enough to make them feel at ease. He had experienced this many times, such as sweet potato noodles and Chen's shop. These were all started by Chen Yu, but in the end he didn't care about anything anymore. The Atari incident also shows that Long Lingui will not support Bao Feiyang without principles, so after helping Bao Feiyang transfer his job this time, this kind of support will become less and less, or even disappear. It's okay, let's go and get ready to board the plane. Bao Feiyang picked up the password box and walked towards the security check passage. My father grew them himself, and my family bought the seeds ourselves, so why can't I take them away? Chen Yu couldn't stand it anymore and retorted. I'm fine, damn it, let's fight him. Li Yu was actually seriously injured, but he gritted his teeth and sat up. Mr. Zhang, don't worry. We will definitely have many opportunities to cooperate in the future. Bao Feiyang seemed not to see Liu Ning's eyes, and just said to Zhang Jui with a smile as if nothing had happened. The 10 black-clad ninjas had been silent since they entered the room. Now, after Madame Floran took a few steps back, the 10 men immediately stepped forward, each picked up a bottle of injection and injected it into their arms. If Lao Qian hadn't wanted to kill innocent people and hadn't thrown him off the city wall on purpose, if Xie Bangui hadn't been kind enough to use his hidden strength to push him into the city gate, he would at least have become a charred corpse by now. Chapter 37 The Real Murderer Behind the Scenes. Then, the two drove to MGM and parked the car in front of the gate. Chen Yarn gave the car keys to Li Han, entered the dance hall by himself, came to the bar, picked up the phone and called Ji Fengyi, asking Ji Fengyi to come to MGM to dance. Those soldiers who were lucky enough not to die or be injured only screamed after a while when the pain spread. After all, learning to cook also requires practice and accumulation of experience. If Athena doesn't let her practice, she will never learn to cook. Cecil became even angrier. Doesn't he know better than you what is the most important thing for a general? Fu Gi did not accomplish anything substantial this time and has been making plans all the time. After all, she couldn't really abolish the river god's status as a god, because both her own personal affairs and the entire Eastern gods' farming plan still required the river god. There is a fee to come in here at ordinary times. 1 adult costs RMB, and each adult can bring up to 2 children. Any extra children will be charged according to the adult fee. Many people felt weak in the knees. Sushi watched them supporting each other and turned his head to look at Ji Qianyi. It would be difficult for him to find anything other than combat experience in his mind. Li Han shouted, "What do you want to do?" He took out a stack of military bills and walked to the counter to pay. In about a month, Bibi Dong earned her own title in this city of killing, Jade-Faced Rakshasa. Because every time she killed someone, there was not a drop of blood on her face. Coupled with her beautiful appearance and ferocious methods, the name Jade-Faced Rakshasa gradually became known. These spirit masters generally have 2 paths after they are born: either they are secretly captured for research, or they are pulled by people at the Lighthouse Country's biological experiment base to study the relationship between strange creatures and the human spirit. "Sister, I heard from them that you've made a fortune. Why don't you help your brother?" "Your brother has no ability, so he relies on others to help him." Li Weigua took out a cigarette and handed it to Kui Runshan. Kui Runshan said he didn't want to smoke, so he lit it up and smoked skillfully. Due to the width of the standard tungsten gold sword carried by the swordsman Mecha, it cannot be swung wantonly in the passage. Fortunately, Ji Liufeng's control ability has reached perfection, and after several setbacks, he quickly adapted to the battlefield situation. The searchlight had been turned on earlier, and the other 3 instruments were inside the diving suit, but the switches were set outside, which he pressed one by one. After destroying the shield and arms of the Kangyu guard, the power contained in the flame blade's aura was almost eliminated, but the remaining power of the sword still shook the body of the Kangyu guard. Ji Chengyan took out his wallet and looked through it. There was an ID card, a bank card, a photo of Shen Yuying, and 10 yuan. "That's all," he said, then looked up at Shen Yuying. "This place is located in a remote area, and the surrounding residents are far away from them, so no one cares about them." As soon as he finished speaking, an unprecedented momentum came down upon him, accompanied by the angry voice of the man in black robe. The 2 of them had no real anger, they were just competing for pride. This situation actually encouraged them to practice harder, so Yi Qing let them continue competing like this. "I was deceived. I pulled her arm and asked in anger, 'Were you kidding me just now?' Damn, you acted quite convincingly on the phone." After repairing his equipment, he walked out of the village, summoned the blue wolf cub, and changed its name to number 3. Speaking of Huashan sect, one of the 6 great sects, it was not right for the young master's wife to be so ruthless. However, since the role of monster had just been defined for everyone in Icheng, why would Hua Shooting be hesitant? This time, the number of people involved was much greater than when Shangguan Jiannan just disappeared. Ding Yi and Xie Gang were allowed to leave the village, and together with Dao Dashi sent by Xian Men, they each led their own people to the destination marked on the map sent by Chen Yiqian. Kong Tingshuan now does not look like a detained prisoner or captive, but rather like someone immersed in the land of pleasure, unable to extricate himself from it. "Master, this is where my Yao clan comes from. There is also a natural formation here to resist foreign enemies," Mai Ji explained. Song Yi returned to their hotel, booked a room and settled Warren down, then returned to the room and entered the system. She had learned everything from Motor and knew that the county magistrate and the chief of Taining County were not on good terms and had quite different opinions on how to deal with them. Xuanji was silent for a while, and when he saw Xuanxuan's back was about to disappear, he suddenly said, "You helped me with this favor, thank you very much." Xuanxuan stood far away and replied in a cold voice, "No need." The figure immediately jumped up and disappeared in front of everyone. "So I fell into Lei Chang's trap." Yu Shueshing felt relieved, but she was annoyed immediately. The 2 beauties of the Meng family took the credit and snatched Hua Shuxian away. She was happy to watch from the sidelines. At the same time, she evaluated the strength of both sides and watched Xinlifang being used as a target by Icheng and Jinling Hua family for nothing. "Dr. Liu has already told me to eat a light diet in the near future, and to avoid meat and spicy food, as it will cause inflammation, which is not conducive to wound healing and may also leave scars. At this time, Chen Yaoyao finally joined the guards who came to support him and staggered to his feet. This was what Chen Yaoyao and Zhao Ling had discussed beforehand. If they crawled out on the ground, the Gui in society would let them shoot arrows as much as they wanted without worrying about accidentally injuring them. Although it was a bit embarrassing, they finally escaped safely. Chapter 38. Why is he okay? A flash of thunder streaked across the sky, and the heaven and earth began to tremble. The lightning illuminated the faces of everyone in the darkness, as well as the horror in their eyes. We brothers were all very happy with our cigarettes in our mouths. I didn't use Wang Yushuan at all to get rid of Ging Si and Hu Di. However, if we brothers wanted to carry Gao Yi, Wang Yushuan would not say anything. He also knew his own weight. He Manzi came out of the bathroom and sat gently on the sofa. The tea brewed by Yang Qiao had already been placed on the coffee table. Yang Ren looked back at Lu Xiying with eyes as calm as water. He knew the latter's evil intentions very well. The latter wanted to take advantage of the jewel to bully the weak and reap his life with justification. With the 42 acupoints opened before, the number of acupoints opened in Yang Ren's body reached 57. According to the calculation that one advances one level for every 40 acupoints opened, Yang Ren's current realm is equivalent to the middle stage of the first level Superman. If Xu Ziming could understand it, he might be able to directly reach the Jindan stage and reach the realm of the ancestor Xiaoyaozi by using martial arts to enter the Dao. Then we spent the rest of the time digging a cellar, which was very necessary because just as we dug the pit and concealed it, another inspection came again. Although the tone of voice was gentle, it revealed an irresistible majesty and the aura of a superior was fully displayed. I turned to look at him, and for a moment my mind went blank, and I couldn't grasp anything. I looked up and saw that it was Tang Tang, with a burly man about 27 or 28 years old beside him. However, Liu Keqian had no intention of giving up. Usually, he was the least talkative among everyone in the Hainan base, but that didn't mean he didn't value the brotherhood among his fellow disciples. On the contrary, he secretly cared about what everyone thought of him. Li Yu, who was lost in thought, would not know that it was because he did not mention the invincible commander who had not yet appeared in public that Wang Liao's calculations had a slight deviation, and he regretted it deeply. After Li Yuan arrived in Taiyuan, he made Taiyuan prosperous, and Taiyuan became a prosperous city comparable to Luoyang and Chang'an. In particular, the second Jinyang Palace was built at a huge cost of money and manpower. The palace was paved with gold bricks and had glazed eaves, which was indescribably magnificent. In an abandoned factory to be demolished not far from Hangzhou, it looks empty from the outside and there is no light at all, but a figure is approaching. After a heavy snort, Tuoberyang turned around and walked away, leaving the garden from another direction, leaving Xiong Buping standing there with a bitter smile. Does everyone think so? Lin Hongfei was a little surprised. He looked at these dealers in surprise, not understanding why they thought so. In front of the dozen or so counters responsible for purchasing elixirs lined up in a row, almost every one of them had someone doing business with the person behind the counter. The violent beating made it feel as if the sandbag was not a sandbag, but the enemy who killed his father. A few days have passed since this incident happened. Although the school office has given explanations, some of them are still too vague and not very credible. However, his goal had been achieved now, so he naturally couldn't care less about all these things. He smiled apologetically at the three people, turned around and was about to leave. Lin Yuling had a boring breakfast. She only drank 1 or 2 bowls of porridge before putting down her bowl and chopsticks. She thought that Wei Ning's family had revived again, but she didn't expect that Li Xianqing came with the village chief to wish them a happy new year and brought many gifts. It was clearly a smile, but Jia Jian felt a little creepy. This middle-aged man chased him to this place and asked him if he wanted to take the shop back, which was really suspicious. Seeing that the emperor gradually calmed down, the two men slowly let go of his hands, collapsed on the ground, and looked at each other as if they saw the most vicious soul in the world. Although the army did not have much food when they left the city this time, and might starve if there was no profit, Zhu Yuanzhong still agreed to Qi Heng's proposal and used part of the food transported by the army to distribute porridge. After what happened yesterday, although Li Shanchang did not really target Liu Bowen, it unexpectedly demonstrated his ability. Qi Heng knew very well that this kind of thing was too offensive. He had already given the direction, so he couldn't ask himself to be the bad guy, right? At present, the hospital must speed up the post-production work. 1 day earlier may save 1 more life. The hospital's time is not spent on planting these flowers and plants, but on saving lives Wei Lin is very firm on this point. The officers had seen this kind of scene many times, so they took out a piece of cloth and blocked Wang Erjia's mouth tightly. We should ask Prime Minister Wen how to deal with the aftermath. We must not act rashly. Prime Minister Wen should give an explanation to the court. Ruoli is worthy of being the eldest prince who has a comprehensive view of the overall situation and is farsighted. I told you not to appear in front of me. Ziyi Yang's cold voice had a hint of chilliness, like broken ice falling to the ground. Chu Yunlian wanted to die. How could she be so obsessed with him? Now she wanted to turn into ashes and disappear with the wind. It was so embarrassing. Chu Yunlian struggled, covering her mouth and nose with one hand, and tried her best to walk out. Yun Lian was unable to dodge and was hit in the chest. She flew out and hit the wall behind her. Her blood boiled and she almost passed out. Thinking of what Bai said when she lost control of her emotions a few days ago, Zhu Yuning felt that he really shouldn't reach too far and shouldn't push his mother too hard. Chapter 39, Please give me acupuncture, sir. Tang Hua's face was extremely ugly. He analyzed in a deep voice, according to the time calculation, he should have been in trouble a few days ago. Now he is still alive and well. Now it seems that there is only one possibility. That is, someone broke my formation, which allowed him to escape with his life. Zhao Linglan's face turned pale, and she gnashed her teeth and said, "This bastard who is in the way is so lucky. Tang Hua, I can't wait. You are still so frugal now. Why keep so much money and not spend it?" Lao Ju said, scratching her nose with some reproach. The space of the triple circle of heaven and earth can accommodate living people, but one cannot survive in it forever. However, the scene before him made Pentecost, who had remained calm despite the collapse of the mountain, feel his heartbeat speed up suddenly, and a trace of fear appeared on his face. The visitor's face froze, his eyes full of helplessness, and he continued to ask in a low voice, "Brother, you haven't answered my question yet." He did not blame Chiu Li for being unreasonable, but repeated it and looked at the two men in front of him. "Now that you're awake, get up. I found something for you. Go in and soak in it. It should be effective." Dongfang Bai said to Lu Feng. If sailing at full speed, the speed can be maintained at around 35 knots. This is almost a fatal floor for the speed of the ship. With current technology, it is almost difficult to make a major breakthrough. Long Sifen said helplessly. Although they had not witnessed the battle between Qin Yu and Hu Xian, they had heard of the ancient fire god spirit of the divine fire clan. Li Sheru looked at him and told him seriously about the recent events. If she hadn't understood everything, she would never have waited here. So under the current circumstances, he had to talk about it. The unstoppable sharpness and the unstoppable fighting spirit burst forth on the stage. The two equally matched fighting spirits quietly began to form, and in front of the eyes of the crowd below the stage, a martial arts legend began to emerge. "Okay, but once we get inside, you have to listen to me." Since she didn't want to, Lu Feng didn't want to force her. Maybe she had something on her that could save her life. Rossi looked at Roger's departing back, and for a moment, his eyes were blurred with tears. He had never cried in his life, but at this moment his eyes were blurred with tears several times. Heaven's way is heaven's way after all. I haven't taken that step yet, and it's far from the time for a decisive battle. Luo Chen said in a deep voice, and then when he saw the will of the ancient wilderness domain, his face was full of smiles. Looking inside his body, seeing the glowing Pangu god key, and then looking at the light constantly emitting from the corpse of Pangu god below, Luo Chen was confused about the situation for a moment. Su Ruochu heard the noise outside. She raised her head and looked at Wuxing in surprise. He didn't come in but turned and left instead. It was another night. Jin Cheng was busy looking at the time. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. He looked at the sky outside which was getting dark and felt worried. He was about to call Sister Han. Time passed by unknowingly, and when the song ended, the two were still in a daze. In fact, she had thought about making a phone call just now, but she didn't remember Liang Jingchen's phone number at all, let alone anyone else's. The old man on the hospital bed was hit hard by Zhao Baoyu, and he vomited blood repeatedly. In the end, his life or death was unknown. He turned his head and stopped moving. Fang's heavy trucks are different. This type of truck is directly aimed at the market. In addition, Kitano Nobuyuki happens to be engaged in an automobile-related industry, so he is very likely to have discovered the clues through the Fang trucks. After Yi Xian said this, Yang Feiqian felt as if his throat was blocked. He didn't know what to say for a moment, and was left with endless fear and terror. Everyone looked at each other. Although they didn't understand the difference in realm, since the middle-aged man said so, they all believed it. Chapter 40 Cooperation. Looking at the attack of the man in black robe, Mu Chen did not dodge or evade, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then he punched out mercilessly, with arcs of lightning jumping on his fist, and the punch was thrown out, bringing with it bursts of thunderous sounds. Piara Wuzong sighed helplessly while looking for a place to eat. Unfortunately, in just a short while, all the seats were already occupied. At this moment, the dishes that Piara Wuzong wanted had also been served. Sapphire. Liu Huan was stunned when she saw it. This is a very beautiful sapphire necklace. The sapphire base is made of platinum and the chain is made of platinum. It presents a crystal clear beauty. It is as beautiful as a shooting star. Hearing Chen Jin's words, Xu Yiming was horrified, and his sneering face began to change color. The other party not only had all his information and all his cards in hand, but also spoke directly out what he was thinking. The prices at Ju Yuan were shockingly high, but the speed of serving the dishes was good. After a while, dishes were served one after another. 200,000. Although Suyu was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. This was really not a game that ordinary people could play. After more than 10 days of hard work, the villagers have access to electricity and clean water again. Mar Jinyao's calm and steady voice calmed Yusin a little, although she also knew that Mar Jinyao was just comforting her. Piara Wuzong rolled his eyes when he heard this. Oh shit, you call this knowing when to stop? Don't you see the wooden skewers under your feet? There are definitely more than 100 of them, okay. Of course, all this was just contempt in his heart. Besides, when he was in Panshan prison with Ouyang Feifei, a master's degree holder in criminal psychology, the other party was also unable to do anything to him. Since I am so famous and everyone calls me Tang Monk, I will just be called Tang Monk from now on. Tang Xing decided to abandon the name of his previous life. From then on, he would truly integrate into the world of Journey to the West and become the real Tang Monk. Lin Dongcheng had been eliminated, which was not surprising to Shang Jingxing. What really surprised him was that Wei Li had successfully passed the 4th round and became one of the 12 people under various pressures, including being recognized by him at a glance, having his identity revealed, and nearly going crazy. After this, no one dared to enter Shenzhen mountain range at will. Of course, there were also many independent cultivators who went there secretly. Not only that, Chang Shunhu also formed a special scout team with the last 20 or so elite soldiers around him, which was specifically responsible for eliminating the Qing scouts along the way and trying not to let the Qing army know that he was leading an army of more than 10,000 people back to Zhuzhou. Zhang Bin, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his face. And Liang did not go on the stage of the party for the purpose of PK, but wanted to prove to everyone that what belongs to him cannot be taken away by anyone. In the end, Naifeng became Xiongba's 3rd disciple and was taught the wind god leg. As for Duan Lang, he just became a slave of the Changxia Hui. The fate of the two good friends also changed from then on. Zhao Dongliang was too embarrassed to stay there, so he immediately got up and rushed to the stairs. He didn't even take the elevator and ran away in a dusty state. Yunlongzi bowed and handed over a storage bracelet. Qinghua took it and handed it to the blind old woman. The blind old woman probed into it with a trace of consciousness and found a pile of spiritual gold coins, some medicinal pills, magic crystals, and magic essence. Everyone looked carefully and saw that the man standing in the air like a god of war was Li Huling, the leader of Huling sect. In this case, the one who landed was Haichin. Everyone heard the creaking sound of Li Yun's bones under pressure, and saw Li Yun sinking into the sand bit by bit. They looked at Ren Jiezi with more horror. Originally, Jinmao Real Estate Company had only been rooted in Linhai for less than 5 or 6 years. It was almost impossible for it to become the real estate king of Linhai in such a short period of time. Therefore, there were rumors that they had the support of a powerful consortium behind them, which enabled them to rise so quickly. That depends on the baby's recovery, so you have to be good and obedient these few days. Don't move around and don't hurt the wound. Li Wenyang touched his face with his fingertips. The temperature of the baby's face was warm, which was transmitted to Li Wenyang through his fingertips, comforting his tense heart a little. Seeing him come out, Wang Li on the bed opened the quilt and let him get in. Then she hugged him tightly and kissed him fiercely. She was naked. Her hot body hugged Shin-Shisan tightly. Her legs were opened and wrapped around his legs. Shin-Shisan could feel her private parts against his legs, which were particularly warm. Under such circumstances, the Meng family, as the largest family in Yunmeng country, is extremely wealthy. Actually, I really don't have anyone who loves me as much as I do. I really wish I knew you at the same time as Miss Li. At this moment, Wu Xiaoxiao was showing her true self, as fragile as water, which was heartbreaking to see. In today's world, how many people are truly in love, but cannot be together in the end? Shin-Shisan couldn't help but shook his head. Seeing Shinboru's expression changing constantly, and finally looking extremely distressed, Hong Xiaoqian naturally knew that the immortal in front of him must be blaming himself for not being able to think of a way to save himself, and he was deeply moved. Two big words appeared in Xie Yi and Ji Yu Shuesong's minds at the same time: the shadow moves before the person moves. Could it be that Zhao Sen has already realized this? It is said that this batch of ingredients were specially transferred from the farm to reward these heroes. Thinking of Su Xiaoker's hands covered in blood just now, the grey cat was thoughtful. It seemed that Su Xiaoker must have accidentally got this person's blood on him, so he happened to inherit the space.